Alrighty, welcome to the Dragonflight Warrior Retrospective, or at least that's how I've titled it. My name is Maddox. I am not a notable man. Would you like to introduce yourself, Zan?
Hello, my name's Zan. I'm a moderator in Skyhold, and
Nerd.
hey, fuck you.
The Jannies do
I
it
don't
for
know.
free!
I yaps a lot, mostly. That's about it.
And how about you, Mr. Garm?
Uh, I'm Garm, also fellow Yapper. I playing Warrior since Nyalotha at in any serious capacity. Prefer arms, but arms is kind of now, so here we are.
ER and Mr. Gajeel.
Yeah,
Or
what's up, dudes? Yeah, Jill, I guess. Vision Raider, Warrior player. Played DK2 a little bit, but mainly Warrior. I've been playing since Cataclysm, rated seriously since Legion.
Alrighty. Well, to get into it, Warrior was kind of a weird start. We started playing Fury and Vault, and we had it was kind of weird. The Vault tier set for Warrior was one of the most boring things ever because you just ran the literal same build for all content, but I kind of liked it because I could just be lazy about it. How did you feel about Warrior? How did you guys feel about it? We got our whole new set of talents. They took away the pick three kind of thing. What was your first initial impressions when you started? I don't know who to
I was
pick.
pogging out because I really like the idea of I don't know, just cooking new shit that's unintuitive and people might not know about. And the initial testing period is just way more fun because there's way more combinations and things to test. So initially it was really, really sick, and then as the expansion went on, we got no changes. I was kind of getting depressed.
Yeah, because we didn't really get anything until the original point five, which should help Arms' pathing a little bit. It helped us be because was the point five change basically just putting arrows off of the versatility talent in the middle. If I remember right.
It was that and making sweeping strikes baseline because it used to be talented. There might have
No,
been some other changes, but I think they were
uh,
small.
also the skull splitter thing.
Oh, and bloodletting too.
Yeah,
Bloodletting got the 35% execute procs render, mortal strike procs render, whatever.
Yeah. But but yeah, I came back for Dragonflight. I played like season one of Shadowlands, and then I came back for Dragonflight, and it's been quite a good time. We've been thankfully better than Prot the whole expansion, so there's been a reason to bring DPS for you to raid. Um,
Prot
and
had its spotlight in season one, and then for exclusively Mythic Plus, and then never again. So good shit for
I, f-
good shit for DPS Warrior.
I feel bad for Pika TV, man. That guy tries so hard to make Warrior work. Especially when I was kind of interested. He was talking about how he basically was trying to mimic when Paladin was really strong in Mythic Plus. To try and mimic how Paladin worked, he got the healer trinket out of Everbloom. That was on 1 minute cooldown that gave you a shield, the like leaf. And he's like, yeah, just wear that because it gives mastery. So he does that, and he's like, it's like a bop, or it's like a sack essentially, and that was fun.
That's pretty
Um,
sick. Good for him.
people like bring up utility on Warrior, right? And most of the time, I want to say they're using it in the wrong way. But this is an example where Warrior just can't ever match the utility that a Paladin has, right? You're never gonna be able to match bopping someone, spell warding someone, lay on handsing someone. Like that's just never gonna happen.
even just base to spell, especially when we had shit like Afflicted as our Mythic Plus. But more towards raid. I thought the first raid tier was pretty good. Razagath was I didn't really like Razagath because I felt like I wasn't fighting Razagath. I was fighting Razagath's minions like the whole time. The boss itself felt like it didn't do anything. It had the spark spread mechanic, and then it knocked you back a little bit. Like that boss was, it wasn't great. But
I
moving,
think I think that was the only Mythic end boss that I didn't do. So I have no opinion on that.
yeah, I think one of the reasons Liquid Maxi or Limit what fucking whatever. You know who I'm talking about.
Arthur.
Mr. Arthas. He talked about how the heroic fight was way better, and I think it's just because like the boss knocks you to the two separate platforms, you have the ads, you go to the last platform, but the last platform didn't have as many ads that you were dealing with before the final phase where she was sucking in all of the electrical storms. Um, but it just felt like you were fighting ads the whole time. I really didn't like the boss, and especially didn't help that the boss right before Broodkeeper, you're just fighting ads the whole time again. Um,
Think
but
it depends on if you played like mostly Fury or mostly Arms, right? Because if you played mostly Fury, then yeah, it feels like you were fighting ads most of the time. But I came into season 1 Dragonflight like 2 weeks before 0.5 patch, so I just played Arms the whole time, and that felt a little more engaging in terms of like fighting the actual boss.
yeah, no, I think I killed my prog kill was on Arms when we did kill the boss because of those 0.5 changes. Um, but it's weird. I'm not sure exactly how to direct that. I didn't think about this enough beforehand. So,
It wasn't
Honestly,
very interactive, is how I'd put it.
I I I think Gajeel's gonna agree with me. I didn't mind either of those fights because, like, I don't know, man. I'm a fucking pure-blooded warrior main. If I can blow up ads, I'm gonna fucking have fun.
that
Like,
is
I also like Dothia, and that's a massively unpopular fight, but I got to detonate ads, so it's sick.
yeah, it's kind of weird because I'm thinking about this and I'm like, all right, well, how do I structure this? How do we talk about the raids? How do we do this? But the realistic thing is like, let's say we're talking about Arms. You ran the same outside of very specific sets. Like early on in Kurog, you could run like a weird Fervor of Battle build where you just spamming Whirlwind constantly and getting slam cleaves with. That's when they gave us the sweeping strikes baseline, and we could go improve sweeping strikes for the 21-second duration.
Yeah.
But we ran the same shit the whole expansion. I don't really think the tiers like the Fury tier set changed us to where we would actually using like Annihilator, which I was kind of having fun with a little bit. But we just ran the same shit the whole fucking expansion. Every single target build was the same.
It was pretty uninteresting, I would say, and I think that's like I'm gonna put the fault on the fact that they decided to focus our tree on two abilities that are basically serving the same role. Like there isn't even much playstyle difference in season 3 versus season 2, which is like the big contested area. It's like you're swapping out one ability for the other and you're still just slamming Rampage plus that one ability. So like even when
Yeah.
shit changed, it didn't really change.
Yeah, we just basically
And
added Odin Fury to the bar.
yeah, it's just like my issue the issue that I see with the warrior tree or like the fury tree specifically, I guess, is that instead of like focusing on like two concepts, they're focusing on two abilities that fill the same role. So it's like conceptual, like they're the exact same button basically, and War Within is doing like a little bit to differentiate them, but not really.
And are you
It's
talking about
like
Bloodthirst and Raging? Or
yeah, Bloodthirst and Raging Blower for better or worse, like the same button, and I think they'd be better off like just picking something different. Like put Raging Blow and Bloodbath or Bloodthirst in like the same cluster, and then just like put it entirely like 4, 5, 6 new talents into the left side of the tree.
I'd be down if they got rid of Rampage and just made Bloodthirst the spender, honestly. I think that'd be I don't know about it being single hit, because single hit spender for Fury feels kind of weird. But I'm fine with Raging Blow, but I feel like Bloodthirst would be basically the center of the spec. And
Removing Rampage, fucking Gajeel tab in.
Yeah, true. No kidding. Get rid of that shit. I'm not a fan. I mean, I don't hate it, but yeah, it's I don't know. It having only one spender makes just every button feel I don't know. Like it's gotten a little better going into next expansion. It was kind of like that with beginning in season 1 as well, where 2, 3 year buttons were kind of a lot closer to each other. But now, or yeah, with next expansion, it's like that. But most of Dragonflight, it was not like that. And the last, I don't know. I think the biggest problem is the spec has had such a lack of innovation since Legion ended. this shit has played the same since BFA, and you can't argue that. It's just like now we have a few extra tools and toys, but the rotation and the fundamental flow is not changed. Even with the season 3 Dragonflight rotation with the stupid auto attack talent.
Yeah, the Demon Blades equivalent. You
Yeah,
know,
it's literally like the rotation is the same. The button name is different, but like the way everything goes is the same, and that's not necessarily like an issue. It's just like all the toys that we do have are nothing new. And while I kind of cry to bring up back old stuff that did work as well, but like also seeing something new would be cool. But it's also annoying to have stuff still exist that we don't like.
yeah,
Fury also has like the opposite problem of Arms, I want to say, like in Dragonflight at least, where Fury has 3 or 4 buttons that are all builders, and then you go into one spender, right? So it's very decision-wise streamlined. Whereas Arms has all the decision bloat, where you have like 5, 6 spenders. You're trying to figure out what's the best spender in every scenario after Mortal Strike, and it's like, oh, well, here's a dynamic AoE situation. Do I press clap, overpower, sweeping strikes up? Whereas Fury's just, oh, Whirlwind Rampage, Whirlwind Bloodthirst, very cool.
yeah. I mean, I'm kind of a dumbass, so like making warrior simple, I think is honestly my favorite kind of thing. But other people might want it a little more complex. I think the arms AoE rotation was certainly way too complex, where it's literally how Overpower and Dreadnought became quite literally the best buttons in our entire, like, our fucking filler became the best buttons in our entire kit. Man, yeah, okay. I was gonna do the whole Warrior Dragonflight retrospective thing, and the more I think about it, it's just, nothing changed. It's all the same. It is still, even going into the war with it, it's all the same. Like, everything's the fucking same. We got a quote-unquote reworked talent tree, and every single talent we take is the same goddamn thing we took. We have, there's nothing different. There's nothing new to our,
Nope, wrong. In for the kill, and blunt instruments are everywhere now.
True.
Big.
We can finally
Yeah,
kill
the
Tom.
less build diversity, poggers.
Hey man, whatever
I mean-
whatever kills Tom, I'm down with that.
Oh yeah, I mean Tom's horrible. It's propped up by nostalgia of season 4 Shadowland or fucking BFA. People are just hoping that it's good. Now they see the truth. They see the light. They understand. It's
The o-
horrible.
The only thing I don't like.
I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the only thing I don't like about him for the kill is I like static rotations. So with how we've been running with In for the Kill and Wafting Devotion, the variable levels of haste that we have that change my GCD sometimes like gets me thrown into a loop. What were you gonna say, Mister?
I was just gonna say, like, I think Arms has kind of suffered worse going into next expansion because all they did to change the spec was take all the best talents, rip them in half, and either get rid of it or split it into 2 talents. Now you can't have everything that you need anymore. That did make it work, and they just made it even worse. And I just like, I don't understand because I mean I've played the game since Cataclysm, kind of since like at the end of Warlords of Draenor. Like, okay, we're like, okay, surely, next expansion, it can't get any worse. And what do you know? It gets worse. Granted, Arms, and like when people talk about Arms Warrior and Legion, they're not talking about the beginning. I mean, there's few people that did enjoy that iteration. Sure, like go for it. Like focus range people, go for it. Like I get why people liked it, but the vast majority did not, and that's why it got changed. So when people talk about Legion Arms, they're talking about the 7.15 or whatever patch it was, 7.2 rework, where they shuffled the talents around and basically killed focus rage.
Yeah,
And
7.2.
you could play it on a couple bosses. Like I know some people played it on Avatar and Jaden, but it was still kind of somewhat niche. And I mean, during Prague, it was good to have that priority damage, but people that were getting deeper in farm just ignored it. So
What's
pretty much after that, they killed it, and that's what people are talking about when they say we want Legion Arms back. I mean, I know Crick Cake's a focus rage guy, so probably he wants that back, but not for me. No, I prefer the second half of Legion Arms, which is I think what most people talk about. And then we go from that, which I think most people can agree that Antorus Arms and TOS Arms were like peak, and I don't think the spec will ever be that good again, but we'll see. but that's what people want. And then we go from that awesome design, we go to BFA, and they destroyed it again. They destroyed it again.
Yeah, they
End of
took
BFA,
complaints of like the RNG tactician resets, and they're just like, yeah, let's just nuke everything instead.
yeah, they completely stripped everything away. And then we go into BFA, they ruin it again, and that spec is completely just awful. So after they removed Executioner's Precision, after the buffs in Uldir, plus the Execute 2 target nerf, and it was you played it on Jaina just to abuse the elemental cleaving in the last phase, and I don't think there was really any arms play at all. And the hell's that raid called?
The
The Ajar
Zarlor
raid.
or the
Eternal
Ajar
Palace.
Raid.
Eternal
Eternal
Palace.
Palace.
Yeah.
Sorry, that place gives me PTSD. There was like no real arms play in there except for like deep farm, just with like max gear playing for fun, because it was kind of good at that point. With like max gear, it was viable.
Yeah,
And then we,
custom
at
might
the
started
end
popping
of
off.
and then end of Nyalotha, everyone's kind of like high on this copium of having 80-90% haste on arms with Test of Might, like sure, and that obscenely cringe execute rotation with Lucid Dreams. I mean, I'm
I
not a
mean,
fan of
it
that.
even then that only works because we had Lucid, right? Like,
Yeah, it's
That's
like
what I mean. Is like people get hooked on arms, and they don't like arms. They like the borrowed power. That's what people like.
What
And
it?
then
Sorry, good.
again, it's just like, again, okay, it can't get any worse. Then we go into Shadowlands, and guess what? They made it even worse. And it's just kind of an endless cycle that the spec has been in for like 10 years, where it's just like, I don't get why they can't just
they
like
get like some amount of a win, and then they're like, all
for
right, time to go again.
for everything they get right, from going into expansion to expansion, to their credit, with everything they do get right, they fuck up something else. So it's like equal ground again, where
Yeah,
we're not building the spec up to being better. We're just taking things away and trying to make things better while also fucking up at the same time. And we're not going up the trend. And
Yeah.
same thing through the entirety of Dragonflight again. Like, we go through this whole thing again. Now we're at this point, like, okay, it can't get any worse. And then what do you
And
know? They make it
demolish.
worse. Then they make it worse
demolished. Oh
Dude,
god.
so it's just, I like arms to me, like, it needs a complete. We need a 180, and I mean, I'll just make it easy, like with what people say, and I think Crit said it the other day on Arthur's stream, that just go back to Legion.
Use it as the foundation, and then build from there. Like,
And if they don't want to do that, then look for inspiration from either. I mean, Kata's okay, but I don't really want it. I'd say Missa Pandaria, like later Missa Pandaria, not the beginning,
the 5.4.
like
how
5.4
how would you like to
specifically.
see Stance Dancing? Do you think that's worthy of coming back for ARMS specifically, or
I mean, stance dancing is like nothing. It's literally just, I need to make macros to play my character instead
I
of
think the
just.
way it is now is fine, if I'm being honest.
I don't think they should ever bring back stance requirements, because all you do, it literally doesn't do anything to the game except you need to make macros, and that's all stance dancing really is. So
dude? Because
it's
I don't
I,
even
I don't think it has
sorry,
a
go ahead.
place. I just no, that's pretty much my rant there.
Yeah, because I don't even remember exactly. I wasn't even in a raiding guild at the time. I played I think the first patch of Legion, and I was just playing Fury the whole time. The only reason I remember it so much is I got the moose from was it
Archimond.
from Arkham? Yeah, so I did the Asmongold moose. Wait, no, it was the Asmongold's like AOTC
Moose is loose.
Yeah,
Moose's
Moose
Loose event, and
Loose.
it was for Emerald Nightmare at the time, and I was beating an Arms Warrior as Fury, and he was just so disappointed on stream at the time because Arms was supposed to be way better. But I don't even remember what Focus Rage did. All I remember is when I played Dragonflight and I went back into my macros, I think I had like a slash cast overpower slash cast focused rage macro in there, and I don't even know what it did.
So we didn't have overpower in League. Well, we had it, but you didn't play it. It was a talent it was a talent in the choice node of either you have overpower or your abilities cost 20% less rage. Like, for
And the
PvE,
sweeping
that's
strikes one, right?
yeah, I think so. So obviously for single target, that's a no-brainer. Like, you never play overpower. You could meme with it, and it was like okay, but you just didn't play. It was more of a PvP thing. But Focus Rage was just an off the global cooldown ability that you would spend like most of your resource on that just increases the damage of your Mortal Strike. It's like getting
30 rage for
it's like
35% Mortal Strike damage or something.
it's like
It was
pushing over
50% in Eternal
Oh.
Nightmare, or
it was
whatever the
it was
fuck it was.
it started at 50, they nerfed it to 40, then they nerfed it to 30, and then later on, like post Nighthold going into Tomb, they did the rework and fixed the talents to where you couldn't have Deadly Calm and Focus Rage. But it was just basically like off the GCD button that actually doesn't do any damage. You're just spending all your rage to make Mortal Strike do damage. So it's like if you were pushing Overpower off the global, but it does no damage. That's how
I think,
I
So it was just nothing. Like it just.
think-
it-
pretty much, yeah.
think Aberrus. Is it Aberrus, right? The Sarkarith raid?
yeah.
Think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
with Ignore Pain, except you're not using Ignore Pain to fuel Test of Might. You're using a button in the same role to immediately amplify
Right.
damage strike.
And it doesn't have an 11-second cooldown. You're basically using it over and over and over.
As soon as you get rage up to a cap
Yeah.
of 3.
Because
I
how?
mean, people
So you
compare
would
it-
So good.
it's
you'd
compared to-
stack it 3 times to like what 150% bonus Mortal Strike damage,
Yeah, when you were
and then
using
send a
it.
fat Mortal Strike whenever your Colossus Smash procced off Tactician. That's how you played it basically.
Hamstring macro, puggers.
Yeah, Poggers.
Yeah, and like that's kind of why it was like very cancer in the beginning, and is people had macros while they had Battle Crab where nothing cost rage. You had Hamstring, which was off the global, but spent rage in macros to like further propel resets, and it was just a very very degenerate playstyle that you need to abuse if you were trying to maximize your output.
How do you feel about
Yeah.
Arms's constant need to modify percentage damage? Because that's one of the things about Arms that I don't really like that much, is that it feels like everything you do is just a percentage modifier for something else. Like literally all of it. I mean, most of it's just a percentage modifier for Mortal Strike, right? Like you have Executioner's Precision, Martial Prowess, even Colossus Smash itself is like, oh, it's another modifier on a modifier on a modifier. Do you guys like the pure what feels like modifier spam? Because Fury has we have modifiers with like Reckless Abandon, and we have Slaughtering Strikes, which is kind of like Slaughtering Strikes kind of weird, but it just feels like Arms is just completely chocked full of percentage modifiers just to actually do normal damage.
It's kind of been that way since Legion. I can't really think of a lot of modifiers from before that time. Like WAD, you just had your cooldown, and Colossus Smash, and that was it. Like you either had Avatar or Bloodbath and just Colossus Smash, and that's it. And then you go to Legion, and it's they changed the mastery to give a damage amp on top of, like, further propelling the damage amp on top of Colossus Smash. And then later, when they added the extra artifact rings, that's when they put Executioner's Precision in the game for the first time. So there was really only those two for that whole time, and then BFA, they changed the modifier. They gave the damage to Overpower instead. Well, I guess
The Martial Prowess Mortal Strike modifier, you mean?
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
really a fan of martial prowess. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think with I mean, I don't think it's that great. It doesn't really do much. I think it would just be better if your stuff did damage. Sure.
Yeah, I genuinely like all of these things were like quote unquote solutions to the problems of Legion, but I feel like it just plays worse than Legion.
Yeah, instead of having like the one source of all your damage modifier through just Colossus Smash, they kind of like ripped all that away and split it up into a bunch of different areas, is what it feels like. And now it's like you're trying to overlap everything in a clunkier way.
So would you say it's more akin to because basically I played Sub Rogue in WAD, and then I quit in WAD because I realized I was having more fun cleaning my room than being in a like husband-wife guild that couldn't kill Twin Ogre on normal. So I started cleaning my room, and then I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? I like this more, so that's when I quit. And then I played the first patch of Legion as Fury when Arms was better, and then I played Shadowlands Season 1, Gil died before Sylvanas, and so I stopped playing again. So definitely when people talk about like how Legion was before and stuff, I never got to that point. So I'm not really sure exactly how all that flows together.
Yeah, Legion was weird, like at the beginning, but it was fun. Like Legion, I think is still the like overall best for the game, even though, well, at least for someone that didn't work at the time, I don't think I could play Legion now with a job, but it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, I just remember I think I got Agrimar's Stride and I was sad. I think that's the like legendary boots in Legion because it wasn't the best
Yeah,
DPS one.
I was a
Um,
Pride as haver.
Hey, Pride Eyes actually like sounds cool. Like, imagine if we had Pride Eyes
Yeah, maybe
now. Like,
after
Pride
the
Eyes would be
buffs.
sick for
Holy,
Mythic
yeah.
Plus.
after
The
the
last
buffs, it was
day,
good. Pre-buffs, it
yeah,
was fucking piss.
it's
I
very
made
bad before they fixed it.
13 characters in Legion. I started off playing a mage. I used to be a mage main.
Ew.
Funnily enough. And the first three of my legendaries for every character were Pridaz, Cephas, and then the generic Norgannons or Agrimars or whatever the leather one was,
I don't know.
Cinedaria.
Oh,
So
yeah.
my main was basically just decided by whichever got its fourth legendary first.
That is
That
terrible.
is,
Yeah, that's kind of Legion in a nutshell early on, to be honest, which was not, I mean, admittedly, yeah, like the beginning was a very, very rough, very, very rough, but near like the middle point, like when Nighthold was out, I mean, there was still problems, but that raid was just so kick ass, and the TOS was like really good on heroic, but then Mythic was notoriously brutal, just how unforgiving it was. And Taurus is, I'd say overall the best, even though I kind of like Nighthold more, but in terms of like the overall state of the game, Taurus was definitely better. Because by that point, like, the raid was like a really good raid, stronger tier sets, and then like most people had legendary the stuff they needed by that point, and then they added the vendor, yada yada.
how do you feel about the not like the legendary tuning and spec tuning in accordance to legendary and Dragonflight, but what the legendary itself did, like from this as concept?
I mean, are you talking like so Fearlath? You mean like
Yeah.
how? I wish Fearlath upon mages. I wish they get the next legendary because they have to deal with having being about or you said without it, but it's hard to consider how I enjoy it without.
Well, they basically turned into Demolish, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
carryover.
that's it's so weird where it's like we want something that's not just the legend, but it just is. Like it doesn't have the charge, but
Has more variance.
like it's like
it's
hey,
literally just worse.
but like one of the things it sounds like in Legion it sounds like you built yourself around setting up a Colossus Smash window. Does that sound about right? Like towards the
Kind of. You
Around
didn't
setting
have
up Mortal
to.
Strike, more like,
The
but yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to how we play now, except Tactician resets now just reset Overpower, and Legion it reset Colossus Smash and Mortal Strike. So every time you got a reset, you would always Colossus Smash first, because then it would give you what Overpower kind of does now, where it buffs your next Mortal Strike, and then you
oh,
would just
okay.
do that like over and over and over. Same thing with it did that for XQ too. So if you Colossus Smash, it would give you a 50% damage and increase crit chance on execute too, and then you just kind of spend your rage to get resets to just further, hit harder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
still
think it
very,
was shattered defenses, right?
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
much better.
increase the crit chance and damage of your next Mortal Strike or execute by like 40% or whatever.
Yeah, it was one of the gold traits on the artifact weapon.
Yeah.
Basically take what the four piece I think in Nurugor Palace does for arms, and that was just baked into and martial prowess, and both of those were baked into the artifact for Colossus Smash, which is used the way Overpower is now.
Yeah. But I guess going back to your question though about how I feel about it, like if I try and like outside of taking 3 months to get kind of thing, kind of feeling about it, it's just boring. Like I kind of wish it was. I mean, it's kind of weird where I would almost rather it was just the fire dot. Like let's say we just looted like our special weapon was like we looted off Smolderon was just a fire dot weapon or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought the what because there were interesting ways to use it. There were certain applications of it, like how many stacks you got when you could actually. There was admittedly some interesting funnel you can do with it, with Untendril as an example. It depending on when you actually hit the final point, like if you crashed everything down into the like while the roots come up, you dot all the roots, and then if you waited just a little bit, you could suck all of that bonus damage from the marks from the roots and then funnel it into Tendril. Like you could get easily like in season 3, I think I was even getting like 1.4, 1.7 million crits on just Tendril. So yeah, so you could do some. There's actually interesting applications with it. Like the more I think about it, but trying to untie it from balance and time to get.
Well, just like design point, right? Because from Legion to BFA, they took the legendaries and turned them into talents. From BFA, I don't really remember any legendaries, but we had essences or whatever.
Like
Those-
corruptions? Or is that something?
Or-
No, the essences.
The powers on your neck.
Oh, those traits. Okay, yeah, because I didn't play BFA.
They kind of got turned into talents too, moving Dragonflight, and then now the Dragonflight legendary turned into Demolish, right? So Well, I guess-
Honestly,
Go
like I feel like this is basically just going to turn into like, what do we think about Demolish? Like, do
Yeah,
we like it? And
I mean, fuck it, let's talk about Fury.
The simple
Dude.
answer to demolish is no, don't like it.
I don't know. My issue with Demolish, like obviously there's the rooting issue. The fact that you can't make it consistent is really fucking bad. Like
we should just make it auto
I would
crit.
say, I mean probably, but then it just gets tuned around. I don't know. You could do that, yeah. But like a reason why people aren't mad about Draft of Souls but are mad about Fear Laugh is because Fear Laugh doesn't do fucking damage. And
That
it's
is
like
true.
sort of the same reason that people are mad about Demolish. Demolish does damage, but it's not consistent. Like you can't do shit consistently. So it's like, okay, well, guess I'll just suffer if 50% of my demolishes don't crit. Like you're just mad at that point. Because like some other arms warriors can do like 20% more damage because they're demolish crit every single time.
An easy fix would be to like the Colossal Might stacks, just increase the crit chance of Demolish.
Yeah, that'd be
Like-
good.
5-10%, whatever, for each stack you have, slow down the rate of stacks, and then give you a bonus on damage or whatever if you cap the stacks. Right now, it seems you kind of just build the stacks anyway. There's nothing to play around. You have so much of them, and then you throw out Demolish, and it's like, oh, cool, I didn't crit. There's no
Yeah.
like engagement.
Yeah,
to
no,
arms
there's
as a
like
spec.
there's cool potential with like using spear and demolish to just like do big fuck damn. And I suspect that we're gonna see things go that way anyways towards the end of like season 1 and into season 2 because like someone's just gonna get an insane parse because they fucking got their demolish to crit in every single spear window. And it's like it's gonna be so stupid to look at. I can see it happening. It's going to happen.
Well, for me, it's less about the parsing. Like, parsing's cool and everything, but
I mean,
It's
my
more-
point is just like it's
the
gonna
damage
feel
variance is inconsistent. Like, if you need to make a damage check and you're like, oh, my 2 demolishes and spear didn't crit. Sorry, guys, go again.
shitty. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
kind of...
yeah. I pulled up. I guess as we're going into it, I pulled up. I've got the Colossus. I guess since we're talking about Demolish, we'll just go with Colossus. Colossus feels very weird. It's gotten buffed and nerfed multiple times. One of the things that's very weird to me is that Colossal Might increases the stacks of it increases the amount of damage that like your bleeds are doing. So there's that question of whether or not it's going to be better to not spend it in AoE, depending on how much damage our dots might be doing, right? Like if we're just spreading deep wounds and rend and we have a bunch of targets, since we're target capped anyway, that shit's technically uncapped. They could be doing 20% more damage. I don't know, because I'm looking at the tree and like it's. I just don't find Demolish that I just don't really find it appealing. Like if I understand Warriors like the big two-handed do big damage thing, but I just don't find. Maybe it's just the ability, maybe it's the animation. I don't know. I just like if they want us to do one big damn, cool, I guess, but it it just feels lackluster for a button. On top of how they've designed it and how they've designed the cooldown reduction around it, it feels like one thing you want to do, at least, or I've been trying to do at least now, especially with arms, is you want to build everything around your Colossus Smash window with a damage amp, and now you're looking at things like when you're talking about crit variants potentially. Now you're looking at, okay, well, all right, I got my Demolish with 10 stacks Colossal Might lined up with my Colossus Smash in this big window. I've potted, I've thrown down my champion spear, and I don't crit. Like, fuck,
Yeah.
man.
Exactly, right? Like, yeah, really like Demolish as like a concept. I think it's like really cool. It's just like there's going to be gameplay issues, and they're kind of unavoidable. I just hope that they address them at some point. But given their history with Warrior, it kind of seems like it's going to be not addressed for a long time. So
Do you feel that the issues resolve around like just it not lining up with other things? Like one of the
you have desync, you have the fact that it roots you, you have the fact that if your target dies while you're doing it, it just stops entirely, like Rampage.
How does that happen?
Yeah, it does happen. It does happen. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it can be parried too. Maybe they changed that. There
No,
might have been
they
patch notes
I
for that.
tested with Archie. It and Warbreaker are still full parryable.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, so it can be parried too. And on top of that, it's like very inconsistent because yeah, it's like, you know, all of the damage is backloaded into this like 500% AP hit. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. You basically like double your ability damage if you crit on the last one. So
750%
yeah,
AP hit. Yeah.
yeah, whatever. You know what I mean. I
Yeah.
thought 700 was the cumulative percent, or did that change with the like when they zeroed out the auras?
It's 185 plus 185 plus 750 according to what I'm looking at.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
probably, yeah, it got covered in the 50% zeroing out thing then. So it definitely used to be like 500%. It was like 700 cumulative. Jesus.
The other thing about the Colossus tree, and I'm not sure how this works with Prot, because I never put on a shield, right? Once you put on a shield, you're jailed.
Yeah.
The one against many versus arterial bleed talents, right? I'm gonna load those up. You're on your stream.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It's on the left
I'm
side.
so bad at this. Wait, no, that's on the yeah.
Isn't the one against many just like fucking broken as shit because it gives you 25% damage boost on revenge? Like,
Well, it does it for it's actually didn't they buff Revenge for it specifically? Didn't Revenge go to like 10%, or is that a different talent?
No clue, don't care. I
Okay.
was getting to we were talking about like bleed and stuff, right? And
Mhm.
in BFA, bleeds were a massive part of our damage. We were basically a dot spec in Nihilotha. Here, arterial bleed as a talent is kind of useless. Like we have the roar amp, we have skull splitter, we have bloodletting and rend and all that, cool, but the way it's tuned doesn't ever really make it competitive versus one against many.
Yeah,
right?
just a casual 25% cleave on top of the other cleave modifier on top of cleave getting just buffed to oblivion. I mean, they are technically doing kind of what I said, making it simpler, where it's like, hey, AoE, cleave, single target, mortal strike. You're doing the spec, right? Like they're kind of like pushing it that way, but they're kind of only pushing it that way because once again we have 1,000 modifiers that are just amplifying a single button again.
Yeah. The opportunity's there for them to take a entirely different playstyle where you play like a Sin Rogue, and you could give Demolish like an Xang effect on the main target, whatever the fuck you want to do. Skull Splitter and Roar, that could be pop off cool moment in AoE or even single target. But it's just it's like a not wasted, but squandered opportunity. I'm not sure if that's because their tuning department is struggling right now with TWW launching so soon or what's going on, but
I mean, even going back to just like even our base class tree, like the warrior class tree, we've just had basically no innovation. Like outside of maybe like you said, we got Sweeping Strikes baseline, and then there were some like pathing changes in 0.05. Even now, even with the changes, I guess we can get Shockwave now, which is cool, but it feels like there's been almost no innovation since the beginning of Dragonflight to now with how our class and spec trees even work.
It's because there's not.
There's some creative bankruptcy going on at Blizzard with regards to Warrior. I mean, like I've said this a number of times in Skyhold and to various people, but like we just finished an expansion with like a bunch of pyrokinetic dragon slaying giants, and somehow Warrior doesn't have a single lava based ability. Like who the fuck knows, man? Like there is even an entire quest line that's like dedicated to you proving yourself to like some old exiled dragon slayer Jarradin in the backside of the big mountain in that one zone. I don't even know the zone names.
The waking shore, like
yeah.
Are you talking about like towards the entrance of Neltharis, like that kind of castle
Yeah,
area?
It's like around the back, right? And like you go and talk to this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, kill dragons for me." And it's like, "All right, sure." And then he like is happy with you, and somehow, yeah, I don't know. There's like so much to pull from. Give us a fucking Rashok slam, man.
Like
make us shoot out lava waves.
Like what if Demolish, when it hit the ground, because it hit the ground so hard that it created like a little lava zone or something?
Exactly. Like we already there's already precedent. Like we already have a glyph that literally sets you on fire because you're so angry for Fury Warrior, and there's the glyph of Blazing Trail for charge.
Yeah.
Like you're running so like. Yeah, I don't know. There's precedent, and they're just doing nothing with it. So
I've actually, interestingly enough, I think we've had this conversation almost every single time I've done like a podcasty thing, where it's like when you look at like D&D concepts, and you go, okay, well, the caster can be a warlock or a mage, and they specialize in like frost or fire or the dark arts or whatever. It almost feels like if they gave Warrior anything like fire or lava based, someone would go, "Oh well, but what about an elemental shaman?" Right? Like almost like you can't
enhancement and Ellie.
I don't get that argument, because if you
it's stupid.
Again, look at Legion, Baha, but if you even look at our talent trees now,
Odin's
Avatar
Fury used
Torment,
to be fire.
Yeah, Odin's Fury used to be fire / shadow, but also you have the Torment, right? Blade Master's Torment. For arms and Fury. I'm not sure if Fury's is called Blade Master, but you press Avatar, you Odin's Fury around yourself. Like that's more stuff like that. And I don't know why arms always gets shafted on Torment whenever
they took
both
Warlord's
Fury
Torment
and Prod are uniform.
Warlord's Torment got fucking shotgunned in the streets. Like that like Warlord's like the torments on arms are so bad that they're opening up the possibility that they open up the use of Skull Splitter just because we want something to work with our 45-second roar, because all of our capstones suck ass. Like our capstone, like I don't understand how Warrior can have some of the literal worst capstones, like worst, most uninteresting, most nothing capstones that we used to have. Like Warlords was decent and it did. And I feel like it just got shotgunned because of how it had an effect on people talking about the rage economy of arms so much. So they just kind of you know what, we're just taking it out. They aren't even dealing with it. But like, even if we look at the other capstones, like I think like the Roar capstones are the Thunderous Words capstones. I think specifically the words change to make the bleed amp during Roar is actually somewhat interesting. And that's why it facilitated, like
a good change. Yeah,
I think it's just interesting, right? It's something a little different, because it facilitates Skull Splitter. It allows the 45-second roar, so you can get 2 Skull Splitters in there. It gives us a better profile. One thing I didn't necessarily like too much about it is it felt like if there was any sort of way that you're desynced on a boss, it just felt terrible. Like Skull Splitter not desyncing, because it does have that cooldown range where it's like 4 seconds of a window or whatever you can mess with. But the moment, let's say a boss flies up into the air and goes away, and your roar's off cooldown, and then you obviously don't press it on nothing. Now it's just not in sync with your avatar for the rest of the fight. It's just, which I'm I don't like those kinds of desyncing issues. But just looking at our capstones, like they tried to make Blade Masters Torment this interesting like cleave thing, but the capstone itself was boring. It just lets you cleave more.
I think it's
Uproar,
cool. It's just bad.
yeah,
Like it's a cool idea. It's just probably not deserving of being a capstone.
yeah, because like I'm not sure if I just want capstones to be like powerful or have some kind of interest to them. Because you look at the champion spear ones, and it's like, well, you have the 25% increased crit damage, which they changed the formula for that, so it's not even 25% flat anymore. Like it's just worse. Then you have the champion spear damage increased and rage generation. Like nobody takes piercing challenger. Nobody gives a shit about that.
Fury does.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
we don't give a shit about it, but it's better than critical thinking because that talent sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I find all of our cap like.
Or is
What?
it cruel strike? I don't remember. It's critical thinking or cruel strikes. One of the two.
Strikes.
Crit
Yeah,
strikes.
and then I find
It's
our
the execute thing.
yeah our like fatality. Like, how is fatality just this bad? It's just
It's a fucking. It's a problem. It's like it's not just arms either. It's like Fury too. I like. They have like 5 capstone nodes, I think, that are just like completely horrible. If there were like any other options in the like second gate that were actually viable, you would be taking those instead. But there isn't, so you take Unbridled Ferocity now because it's like the best of, you know, a batch of shit.
like our end. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to talk about Bladestorm before we so we can transition to Fury. If you look at what Gajeel said earlier, how all of ARM's like fun toys are getting dismantled, which I fully agree with, and either getting tossed aside or replaced as other two separate talents. The same thing's happening with design ideas, right? Like the Torment, Warlord's Torment for Fury, it works seamlessly well. Right? It had its bug issue, but that's kind of minor. The way it like actually functions in gameplay is totally fine. Their Odin's Fury Torment, totally fine. And then you look at Bladestorm, which Fury just got going into the World Wake or War Within. And Fury also has Unhinged now, which used to be a Legion Arms legendary. The thing is, Fury's version of Blade Master Torment never spawned a Bladestorm, and Fury's Bladestorm is a 1-minute cooldown, right?
It's 130.
Oh, is it 130?
Yeah,
Okay.
they changed it.
It's 130.
But it's effectively 1 minute with Slayer, right?
I think
45
it's
seconds, 1
I
minute.
think it's even shorter.
Yeah, it's like 45 seconds. It's really short.
Yeah. So Fury has the Odin's Fury Torment and a Bladestorm that synchronizes with Odin's Fury and therefore the Torment. ARMS doesn't really have anything of that capacity, and yet ARMS' design and tuning is being held down because of ARMS Unhinged, which is the entire reason why Blade Master Torment was changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Fury is just getting all of the design elements that could have made ARMS good, and Fury works fine. If you look at Slayer, for example, but ARMS is getting all of its stuff strip mined and dismantled around.
Yeah, ARMS is down bad for sure.
They didn't do anything to ARMS except take talents that were played all through Dragonflight, as I said, and they just split them in half or got rid of them and made it more aids. Like, it's like you look at this stuff and you read it and you're like, okay, well, what do we get in return? And it's nothing.
We get demolished. Woo!
It's like reading the Shadowlands patch again, or the Shadowlands like beta and alpha and like final changes, like going in again. I'm just like, so where's the new stuff? Oh, it's not there. I see.
Yeah, no, there's just I don't like it's just once again it's going back to the lack of ingenuity with these things, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, or it just like it just lacks creativity because like let's look at Depths of Insanity. Like the talent's so bad it was not picked once over this entire like year and a half, 2-year period because it had no value, complete worthless, never taken at all. And instead of making it interesting, they made Unbridled Ferocity way worse. Going into that,
They just made it like equally as bad.
yeah, but like imagine like going into that fire thing. What if Unbridled Depths of Insanity. What if they just changed it to like it adds fire damage to your fucking attacks while like Recklessness or Avatar is active or some shit? Like just
Pulsing fire damage around you, very cool, like Burning Rush.
oh, it could be like the heavy in TF2 with the fire with the fire minigun, the Hue Long heater, pulsing fire damage.
Fucking TF2 mentioned.
I don't fucking know why I mentioned TF2, man. But it's just crazy how we have these talents and things that the thing, like you said, the things we did use, like going back to arms, even just a talent that was just straight throughput being strength of arms is just split into two talents now, and now the worst part of it is just a single talent by itself. It's like in finishing blows, it's very weird. But you see all of the good stuff broken and then put into different things, like how Storm of Swords is just like no rage cost now. Like it's like we used it as a rage dump because of the rage economy thing, but it had its own value, but now it's just kind of weird. And then you have shit like Depths of Insanity, which isn't used or touched at all, and then just doesn't get any sort of change or ingenuity to it.
Can't forget Storm of Steel, the talent that was only useful because your Blade Storm literally did not work without it.
Was that is that the one that you get 2 charges of it or whatever?
Correct, and it reduces the damage by 30%.
Yeah, so we have that.
So you get 1 extra use for 30% damage loss on one of your hardest hitting abilities. Yep, that's real good. Good shit, Blizzard.
Shout out Spiteful.
Woo!
Spiteful Serenity?
Yeah, that talent is like, that baffles me. Me and Gajeel have talked about this like a number of times, but like that talent is literally Legion Titanic Might before they buffed it to make it actually good.
I don't know what to say. Like, they literally tried this talent. They literally tried this 2 expansions ago, or however long it was ago in Legion. They did the same thing. Realized, hey, this is shit and doesn't work, so we're just gonna remove the negative. And then it was really good, and it is really good. But even then, in the final patch, it still got beaten out. It still got beaten out in the final patch, even without the negative. And then they just poured it back in and bring the negative back with it and expect people to play it. It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Do you think the only reason it's there is because in the Fury side they have Reckless Abandon as an alternate to anger management instead of just anger management just being there?
I mean, I would think so, but it's like one talent gives you straight throughput with no negatives, and then one gives you a negative on top of a positive. Like, how it doesn't, like, where's the balance here?
So I've brought this up to Zan a couple Skyhold chats before, but it's like, if you look at Fury anger management versus and RA versus Arms alternatives, Fury has like 2 concepts, right? One is more, your damage is weaker but more often, and then RA, which is like a concentrated burst of damage, right? You could do the same thing with Arms and Spiteful Serenity, where you, if you want to do the duration thing, sure, but don't drop like the effectiveness of the skills being used if you take Spiteful. Yeah. Or you just take away the duration and you make it a stronger cooldown in that window, kind of like RA does.
Like 50% more potency or something. So like,
yeah.
C Smash is like a 45% damage amp and Avatar is like 30% or something.
Because then you could actually have like burst windows, which is far more valuable and interesting depending on the like encounter design than just doing it more.
I just say fuck it, just give it
and
double
if you
the effectiveness.
Tie it in with the Torment, I mean, you have a reason to actually take the Torment and take Spiteful. Like, the talents would work together and be synergistic. Which even Fury has with RA to an extent, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, Fury...
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and honestly, like, Spiteful and In for the Kill synergy is, like, undeniable. Like, that is fucking... That could be sick. But they're just too much of a coward. They're too cowardly to actually do it.
It loses, like, based on, like, a bug or something, like 3 seconds off the full potential duration, right?
It's because it's... it doesn't calculate the duration before adding the 3 seconds from blunt instruments, so it gives you 23 seconds instead of 26.
Gotcha.
Which, I mean, who the fuck cares? I'm gonna be honest. Like, who cares? It's like, you know, it's like 3.5, 4 GCDs worth, which is like, you can argue that's like significant, but It's not that big of a deal. It's like about the same size of a bug as like the Berserker's Torment shit back in season 2 for Fury, where it's like, okay, you just press Avatar first or whatever.
Yeah,
But
otherwise
this one you obviously
duration,
can't play it around it. Like, but yeah, it's like the same level of impact. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like they do cool shit and then they hamstring it to make sure that we don't have fun. So
I don't
It's
think it's
not-
intentional, if I'm being honest. Like, they.
no, it's just fear. They don't want to. They don't want things to be broken. But I think, and we saw them do this with Odin's Fury and Fury on the beta, right? Like they buffed it by 136%. And obviously when they did that, it was like fucking insanely broken. Like number 1 on my damage for every single dungeon I did, even on single target. It was like fucking number 1. And then they just like slowly toned it down over the course of like a couple weeks, and now it's fine, and it still feels good, and it still does damage, but it's not like turbo broken. Just like make something broken and then tune it. It's not a big deal.
You
Like
see-
I promise it'll be fine.
with the
Well, not
with
even
the
that.
sorry, go ahead, Mr. Graham.
If you look at ARM's design changes over the course of the years, right? We said going into BFA, hey, we miss pressing Execute and Legion by way of EP. So their change to that, their quote unquote fix to that was, we'll give you deep wounds, but Execute won't have deep wounds. So you have to press Mortal Strike and Execute to apply deep wounds, which is not what we wanted at all.
No,
And then-
you want to feel rewarded for doing the thing.
Exactly. If you go into Dragonflight to TWW, we say, hey, Rage and Execute's fine, but Rage just feels kind of useless cosmetic outside of it. Could you do something about that? And their solution was nuke Rage economy across the board and then put it into critical thinking and other talents, right? And then we said, over the course of beta a few weeks ago, we were like, hey, Execute's kind of shit. It's all Raging Blow and Mortal Strike. Their solution was nerf Mortal Strike. So, like, they see the problem, but it feels to me that they don't know why the problem is what it is.
Do you think some of that also is in tune with the faster release schedule of these new expansions compared to before, where it's almost like they don't have enough time to actually get anything into like a relative period, or have something be bad or be too much and then have it nerfed back into the level? Because it felt every week on the beta, it's like, oh yeah, we've got the beta, we're doing expansions in 3 months, expansions in 3 days. Like it feels like the expansions come up really quick, at least for me.
I don't, for 2 reasons. One, because they did do, as much as we love to shit on Harms and Fury and the warrior design process, overall, they did do some good changes. They weren't like major ones, but like big picture, yeah, they were pretty like decent, got the job done. And 2, it's not an isolated issue. If it was just going into one expansion to the next, on like a one-time thing or a 2-time thing, sure. But it happens repeatedly. So I think they just don't understand ARMS as a spec.
I think it comes from like a critical lack of understanding of what they want ARMS to be. They just have no idea. And I this is like gonna sound cringe, but the answer is just make it Legion. Like that was, I think, in terms of fantasy gameplay design balance, like that was probably the best ARMS has ever been. Like just across the board from 7.2 onwards, there's like never been a better designed iteration of ARMS with a more clear-cut identity of, I'm gonna hit you really fucking hard, but like only once every like 5 seconds or whatever.
Could you
We can. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if how exact, because like we've even in previous podcast thingies we've talked about Legion ARMS. Could you kind of just describe, at least for me, how that worked? Because I just simply don't know. Because you guys say Legion ARMS and I go,
It's literally just like the rotation is super simple, right? It's like you keep Rend up if you're playing Rend. You press Mortal Strike on cooldown, and then you press Slam to proc resets on your Colossus Smash so you can press Mortal Strike more. It's like, it's one of the most easy rotations known to man. The only real difficulty is like, okay, I have to manage my rage so that if I get a reset here, then I have enough rage to Colossus Smash and Mortal Strike. But it's like I'm pretty sure even then it was like your Colossus Smash major. There is some like rage reduction stuff via legendaries and the artifact. I don't remember anymore.
The gameplay loop at its core was fish for a reset, and then when your reset was a Colossus Smash and Mortal Strike reset both skills. So you would get a reset, right? Like same way Overpower does now. You would press Colossus Smash, set up the 1-2 punch. Your Colossus Smash would buff either Execute or Mortal Strike, and then if you had Mortal Strike, you'd send Mortal Strike. If you're executing, you would hit Execute, and hopefully that procs another reset, which lets you press Colossus Smash and then EP Strike. So it's very similar to now, but your rage mattered, and your Overpower button now amped Mortal Strike and Execute to a relevant amount. It wasn't just like, oh, hey, press Overpower as an empty filler.
Yeah. It also felt like super rewarding for like actually managing your rage correctly.
Yeah.
Because like it was actually a thing. I don't think, in my opinion, you never felt starved. Like it was like I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe. It's like you didn't always have rage, but it was like you missed GCDs by design in order to make sure that you had enough for like the next big GCD.
There was a reason to pull rage every
exactly, because like
3 or 4 times.
You know exactly what's like. You're gonna press slam and you're gonna maybe get a reset, and you want to make sure that after pressing that slam, you have enough rage to do what you need to do.
Okay, so it was more. Wouldn't necessarily say it. What's the right word? I don't have the right.
It was
word
more. It was like more tactical, but like that's kind of. I think that word's like a.
It had a gameplay loop, and the rage economy was balanced.
It was really good. It was really fucking good. You like had to think about what you were doing, but it wasn't like.
Well, I feel like that's what they are. It feels like that's what they are. They want arms. They want that arms to be fucking words. Jesus Christ. They want arms to be that. Just can't speak the words that are in my head out of my mouth. Where it's they see it as like the battlefield warlord, right? They don't see it as someone like Fury, where it's like literally meat cleavering its way through a group of mobs. They see it as the stoic tactical warrior on the battlefield, and I feel like that's kind of what Colossus was originally supposed to be. I don't really think like Demolish fits that like tactical feel, but I feel like it was more all about, instead of mashing buttons, you had decisions to make, right?
Colossus is like a blunt instrument. Legion Arms was like a 1-2 or 2-3 combo punch, and you were playing to set that up.
It was like precise strikes versus like I'm gonna fucking bonk you on the head with my big hammer. If we're talking about the difference between like War Within and Legion.
Yeah, because like I guess we've talked about Colossus, but if we want to talk more about Slayer,
actually, if you bring up Slayer, it highlights the stark difference between Arms as a core class and Fury as a core class.
I honestly, this is just my general opinion on War Within. I'm like certain that Slayer is propping up both specs at the moment.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think if Slayer didn't exist, people would be fucking pissing their pants over how bad Warrior is.
I was very cautious of Slayer when I first saw it. I was like, but Colossus, big button, big damn. And then the more I've played Slayer, Slayer feels good. It feels good to play. What specifically did you want to highlight about it that changes it, Mr. Garms?
Let me put up on my end. Okay, so you look at Slayer, right? You think it's gonna be an execute tree because both specs play around execute. Not the button, but the window of execute.
Yeah.
But the more you read Slayer buttons, right, it's actually a Blade Storm tree because it does not interact with Ravager for whatever reason. I assume PvP. It's actually a Blade Storm tree that's masquerading as like execute relevance. And if you look at Fury, that works. You can not talent into any execute talents and still maintain Juggernaut?
Yeah.
Just because Fury as a core class without any borrowed power flows well enough that it works. if you try to do that with arms, you're just going to be all over the place trying to maintain Juggernaut, trying to get your executes off, trying to fit in Blade Storm, and then Overflood and Rage, which you need because you have 5 different spenders. It doesn't... Clunky isn't the word, it's very disorganized, is the best way I can describe it. Whereas with Fury, you Blade Storm as for your Slayer requirements, full-on Rage, and then you Rampage. Like, cool, go next, right?
Yeah.
If you look at Brutal Finish, your next Blade Storm after Mortal Strike does 50% damage. For Fury, that's Rampage does more damage, right? So it's just all over the place in terms of what it's trying to get out.
Because Rampage is a far bigger spender than Mortal Strike will ever be in its current iteration.
Yeah. If it was like...
It also just like works like Brutal Finish, I feel like just doesn't work that well for arms at all. Like they get less procs because they have less haste, generally speaking.
Mhm.
And so it's like less consistent on the CDR, so you get Brutal Finish less often, and not only that, but it cleaves less targets, so it's like, okay, what the fuck is this here for? Like it's Brutal Finish is like so much better for Fury, and it's like so obvious that it's
Well,
like surely you guys could have done this a little bit better. I don't know.
Well, I mean, some I guess I've seen some discourse about just like the hero talents in general, is it feels like, oh hey, Colossus feels like it was made for arms. Slayer
I
feels
agree.
like it was made for Fury. Mountain Thane feels like it's made for prop. You know what I mean? Where it's like these things just like they can work, like they work with like arms works with Slayer and it does okay damage, and Fury works with Thane, which has massive single target issues, but it works with it. But a lot of these hero talents just feel like, why did we even get 2 choices? Like they might as well have they should have just, I feel like they should have just soul focused, honestly.
I agree. Honestly, like I assume this is a problem that's gonna be mitigated as the expansion goes on, but like as it stands right now, it's like why why'd you even make these like cross spec viable? It's like, yeah, you can argue it's for choice, but anyone who cares about dealing damage is gonna go with the better option, and that extends even to people who are like doing low level content where it doesn't matter. So it's like you tried to market these things as being like, oh yeah, your choice doesn't matter. Just, play whichever one you enjoy because they're going to be balanced. And then they weren't even close to being balanced.
Because
So,
yeah, because you even look over at Hunter and like Dark Ranger, which is the biggest like, oh, Poggy's like thing ever, right? Everybody's wanted
and
Dark
it's
Ranger
fucking
forever,
boring as piss.
and Dark Ranger is purely passive, and it's between Beast Mastery and Marksman instead of like Marksman and Survival for whatever reason. Like the amount of times you see Sylvanas actually do melee combat with the bow is a lot, even in cutscenes, right? So like, why wouldn't it be like Marksman and Survival? And it's just because nobody plays Survival, so the most played specs they get the Bat Chest, they get the Pog Dark Ranger. I don't know. It just feels very, very, very weird. Do
I think
you?
the biggest issue, like now that I'm looking at the trees again, and Gajeel, feel free to weigh in, because if I remember right, you were the guy who figured out like the quote-unquote optimal cooldown layout for Tendril on Fury. Warrior in the past had this like feeling where your damage profile and the buttons you would push felt predictably nuanced. Like you always knew what you would press 4 or 5 globals out, right? But now it feels to like it's plagued by resets, both specs. Arms is plagued by overpower resets and stacking modifiers, and then Battle Lord and EB are Mortal Strike resets. You have no idea what's going to happen next. And then Fury, to a lesser extent, is currently plagued by Raging Blow spam, right? So it's just Raging Blow as much as you can, keep Bloodthirst on cooldown, and then Rampage.
We're just back to Raging Blow spam even after they said they didn't want it.
Yeah.
It's good shit.
Well, we went through an entire buff cycle of having Bloodthirst actually be a good button. And
then they nuked it.
And then they just, like, we want it to be a good button. We want Bloodthirst to matter. And now we're back to fucking, alright, well, now you have Bloodthirst, but we want it to do the same as Raging Blow. But Raging Blow has multiple charges, can reset the charges, has way more % bonus damage increases in the fucking tree itself. And now we're just, you know what? like I think the Blood Craze change was pretty good. Like I think the Blood Craze change was good because it benefits both of them. So you're like, oh yeah, I do want to press both. But now we're, like you said, because of even just in balance, like the amount of flat damage that Raging Blow and Crushing Blow do compared to what Bloodbaths were doing before when they nerfed the modifiers off Reckless Abandon.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Gajeel.
I was just saying, yeah, like you're right.
This is like what I was talking about earlier. It's like BT and Raging Blow are just the same fucking button, except Raging Blow is better because it's available more often. So it's like to me, it makes no sense to have these two things be like competing builds. It's just like it's nonsensical. It's like why?
Yeah, like if you look at Slayer's Malice, third column, bottom row. For arms, it's
Overpowered damage increased by 30%.
yeah,
Arms.
which is cool. Whatever, it's passive, right? For Fury, it's Raging Blow damage is increased by 30%. Overpower cannot reset itself in rapid succession. Raging Blow can.
We also have the talent above it, Opportunist. When Raging Blow resets its own cooldown, the next one does 30% additional damage and 30% additional crit damage.
That one's actually like poop compared to Fierce follow through. I'm pretty sure. Which is kind of funny because Raging Blow resetting its own cooldown like doesn't matter ever because Hack and Slash exists. It's like it's very clear that they want us to start moving away from Hack and Slash, but they won't just nerf Hack and Slash.
Because it feels like Hack and Slash also props up like slaughtering strikes. Because it's
it does. Like
it's
that
just so
talent
many
is
more.
fucking broken. That talent is like the issue of like why BT just doesn't matter in comparison to Raging Blow. Because you always have it available. If that talent didn't exist, like 90% of the issues we're talking about right now just wouldn't exist either.
Yeah, the 80% of our entire resource bar spender does an additional 20% bonus damage every time you hit this button. Wow.
Oh, no. I'm not talking
hit
about
that
Slaughtering
button.
Strikes. Like,
Oh.
specifically Hack and Slash. The only reason Slaughtering Strikes is an issue, the only reason that BT not being a good button is an issue is because of the frequency at which you get Raging Blow, and the only reason that's an issue is because of Hack and Slash. Because every time you press Rampage, you just get all of your Raging Blow charges back.
Are we even running Sudden Death anymore with all these Raging Blow changes?
No.
We're just going back.
No.
We're just skipping it and going to Cruelty.
You just get enough procs from Imminent Demise that you don't care about the natural procs from Sudden Death.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier about
Not good.
Fury can self-sustain Juggernaut perma without being executed.
You don't care about Sudden Death because like Execute is a relatively poor button for Fury. The only time you press it is to consume the stacks, like the marked for execution stacks. Like that's pretty much it. So
I think I brought this up, but I don't think it was my original idea. I think someone else brought it up before me. But if you made Slaughtering Strikes tied to Execute instead of Raging Blow, that would make the whole spec like flow better.
I think it was Archie that mentioned it.
Yeah, might have been.
I can't remember either, but I know what conversation you're talking about.
And it's like even thematically fits in, right? Like Slaughtering Strikes. Hey, Execute, Rampage.
Yeah, no, it works.
Well, I mean, even the cooldown of it, like just the playstyle of it, you can actually straight piano it. You just Rampage, Bloodthirst, Crushing Blow, Execute, Rampage. You can actually, when you have enough rage generation during that time period, you can literally just 1 through 4 piano that. And honestly, it feels good to do that. But
do we want to talk about rage generation for Fury? I fucking love this topic. It's my favorite.
I mean, is it really cool that it's mandatory even regarding rage generation to take a 2-point talent that just increases our rage generation, or not even our rage generation, just our bar. Like we go from 100 to 130, and it takes 2 of our class talent points, and it's necessary because it's throughput. It's fucking dumb.
That's stupid, but I'm gonna be honest. I think they need to nuke the rage generation from Recklessness.
I mean,
I was
I'd be
literally
fine with
talking
that.
about this like last night / this morning in Skyhold. Like currently we're wasting like 2,400 rage on like a 5-minute single target sim for
And
Fury.
is that just because of how much better Raging Blow is
It's
currently? Is it like season 1 again, where you just press
well, it's
fucking
just
Raging
because
Blow?
reckless like okay, most of it is because of Blade Storm and auto attacks. So it's like, I mean, Blade Storm, you just like massively overgenerate rage. You're like overcapping your bar like 4 times in the span of like 3 seconds. Um, but like you're also overcapping like 150 rage from Crushing Blow, 150 rage from Bloodbath, like 100 rage from Raging Blows. Like we have such a massive problem with overcapping. Part of it is reckless abandon, not a lot of it, but like the rage generation, it speeds up the rotation, but it also like fucks our resource economy. We're just like we're wasting all of it. It's like actually insane. I personally I think that the rage gen has been here for a little bit too long. I think it's overstayed its welcome at this point. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I feel like I've been saying it for a little bit now, and I think I might have stolen it from Gajeel, to be honest.
I mean, I've been over this shit since BFA. I was not happy with them destroying Battlecry from Legion. Like, I was not happy about that going into BFA, and then I was like, okay, BFA's over. Are they gonna change it? Nope. Okay, Shadowlands is over. Are they gonna change it? No. Okay, Dragonflight's over. Are they gonna change it? Nope. Like, it's so bad. Like, Rec is one of the worst cooldowns in the game. It's just, it does nothing. It makes you waste all your resource.
It doesn't even give us real crit. It gives us spell crit.
Yeah,
Like,
I
Yeah.
think that's stupid. I think that cooldown should work with trinkets and cantrip items and shit. I think
mean,
it's really dumb that they don't.
they're just so afraid of Legion again. Like, I mean, to be fair, it like Warrior is the reason they have blanketed the game with changes like this, and it's because of Warriors. Like, there's no denying it. There was other synergies that were abused for
Yeah,
sure. Like
it's like Fury Warrior
like like
specifically though.
like fire damage trinkets with Fire Mage and like arcane damage trinket like the Moonglaze on Guardian Druid. Whereas like because of the way that Warrior Mastery works and did work in Legion, like it affects everything. So it doesn't matter what damage type X does, like you can benefit from it, whereas nobody else can. So they kind of got rid of that. I mean, sure, but then that's why we have things like spell crit and splitting and like trinkets not working with mastery anymore, but there's like stupid specific loopholes that like some stuff does work, some stuff doesn't work, so it's just really confusing. And it's like, I don't know, they need to fall off the fence and either just completely like outlaw it or just allow it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I just think like it makes trinket design like way less interesting because you just end up with like literally everyone and their fucking mother like going for like um two specific
Icon,
trinkets.
OCE,
Yeah, icon OCE and Augury Signet Brand, fucking
Augury,
Ashes
yeah.
of the Ember Soul. It's like there's like 3 trinkets per patch that just everyone and their fucking second cousin wants. Just
Augury was the best one they've done yet, though, I want to say, because it worked off of your crit.
yeah,
Like, your
Augury
critical
was
hits.
cool, but it's like it's still uninteresting because it doesn't really like
Oh, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
it interacts with like your critical strike chance, but it's like okay, but then the damage doesn't really do damage because
Yeah.
it doesn't interact with your kit.
Step in the right direction.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It was definitely like a solid trinket. And it was definitely probably like the most interesting one they released this expansion. I don't really think there's another one that like tops it for me. Unless if you're like counting main stat proc trinkets, but those aren't really interesting. It's just like, ooh, I get to do big damn poggers.
what? Trinkets are very weird, and I think one of the reasons why trinkets are weird for our class as well is the fact that we're 1.5 minutes. You know that War Within trinket that's like, it's literally a 1.5 minute cooldown, and it's like strength and mastery or whatever. I don't. It's
Oh, yeah,
like
the Delve
Shard,
one or whatever.
like it's a something shard. I don't know. Like you press the button and you just get, I think, a bunch of mastery.
Oh, Skirmrak Shard. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's, but yeah, I look at that and then I go, okay, what other class in the fucking game wants a 1.5 minute trinket that does this specifically? And I don't know of any other classes that are. Are there any classes in the game that are 1.5 minutes but us? I mean, technically, like we're like
I
what,
think
like Moonkins are
DK
like 3 minutes, maybe.
DK, I think.
Unholy is a minute and a half.
Yeah, they'll like Skarmorak Shard and the Mark of Kadros. Although I'm pretty sure like a lot of people want Mark of Kadros.
Frost could probably use it because they're technically a 45-second class, which twice is 90 seconds, so a minute.
Yeah.
So I guess just both DK specs.
I haven't played much
is only
Frost.
like that way.
Do you reduce the pillar window now? Because the pillar window was static minute last time I played it.
It's pillar has always been a minute. They just changed ice cap to be a flat. It's like uproar where it's like flat CDR. Like it removes, like for roar it's 45 seconds now. Pillar they just reduced the cooldown by 50
Oh,
seconds
okay.
with ice cap.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So but it just turns it into a 45-second. I'm pretty sure you play ice cap all the time. So but yeah, that could work for them.
Yeah, it definitely feels. It feels weird, but like you said, everyone just goes for. There's just like the stat trinket, right? There's just the what do you call it?
I mean, that's just kind of like yeah, it's like
Arakaris Sack Brood.
Is that the one that gives haste or like it's like haste, then it gives you a strength proc and it summons a little egg guy?
Yeah, it's literally just passive strength and damage, and you get some haste. It's like it's completely uninteresting. It does. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at War Within trinkets, but they all suck, except for those two. Even the raid trinkets are like complete ass.
Yeah, I actually, one of the things I was gonna do as like a video concept was like a trinket preview for going into it because I find that kind of stuff fun.
It's gonna be a short video. They all suck.
Unlucky.
I've like looked at them. I haven't tested them extensively because all of them are fucking 2 minutes.
Are there delve specific trinkets that are good?
If you recall, there's like a 2 minute cooldown one that people were talking about a little bit ago. It was like the new Ajara's Font of Power, the one that gives you it gave you like 12k main stat and like 2k in every secondary. And it just got fucking turbo gutted because
Okay.
people are going to be using it at like sub 600 item level for the entire tier.
Sick. That's well. Actually, speaking of gear, how do you feel about? I mean, it's technically a nothing change where it's like the myth track goes to everything is very rare item level now.
Yo, real quick on the note of trinkets and such, I
Yeah.
want to see more stuff like Razor Coral Ink Pod or the Junkyard Rings, where they're either like once in a fight massive effect that you build up to, kind of like an ultimate trinket, quote unquote, like Ink Pod was, or like small mini games that interact with each other.
Like
the Junkyard stuff was cool.
Diurna Ring and Filial Duty. Those are cool.
Yeah, stuff like that, or the
like the
major fire.
Well, we've got the Seal of Poison Pact, which is it's decent and it does technically work with our raid weapon, which is supposed to be a polearm. Did they ever add any main stat to that, or is it still just a fucking haste polearm with poison on it?
I haven't fucking looked, man. I'm not worried about that thing.
Yeah.
It has no main stat. If it has no main stat, it's not worth considering, generally speaking. Unless if it's, dropping from the penultimate boss of a raid tier.
Yeah. Anyway, you're saying something about the track adjustment?
Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a nothing change where it's like, hey, it just takes longer to gear your guy. But I think something that's interesting about the track adjustment plus the stacking up to 45% buff that you're gonna get in the raid, people are gonna be tearing this fucking thing apart in like 2 months. Like this thing is gonna fall over. But I guess that's technically for like higher guilds, right?
I think it's a good thing.
I think it'll actually help a lot of the like not like late CE guilds. I think it'll help a lot.
A concern of mine in Dragonflight specifically was all of the raids, and I mean this happens all the time, right? In every expansion for every raid, that guilds who clear progression earlier are fighting a totally different fight from guilds who clear at like US 100 versus guilds at US 500, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really bad in Fire Wreck raid because of the gear system, right? Combined with like you were done with all your gear progression within 3-4 weeks.
It was even worse
And
in season 2.
You could say it was
Yeah.
bad in both seasons because like season 2 obviously had the issue where it was like too easy, they didn't account for it. And then season 3 was like it was too hard and they didn't account for the fact that like once they tune around people getting gear quickly, then they need to nerf bosses a lot faster.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting to as well. The raid up to Smolderon was like free.
Yeah.
And then Smolderon was a decent wall, like it was well designed, it was fairly hard tuned, maybe a little over tuned for the lower guilds, but like it was a good spot. And then you get to Tendril and Fire Wreck, which are just this massive wall that no matter
those bosses,
how
you just don't there's not people aren't gonna kill that.
yeah, I have so many friends who are in like US 200, US 300 guilds who are just like, well, we're capped out on eye level, but we're not going to get any stronger, so we just have to wait for nerf. There's no point even progressing this fight right now.
The guild I was previously in, which was a 2-day guild, was what we quite literally did is we got all the way to Tendril, and then we just decided to re-clear the next week because how our group was at the time was just not good enough to kill that fight in the way it was. Just like overall, our raid group, like I think we could have done it. Like we got to like P3 a couple times, but it was going to be very, very hard for our guild to kill that fight at the time. So we didn't even like extend. We just re-cleared, and then spent like the other day on doing some Tendril stuff for morale reasons. Like not even for. I don't even think we got much like item level like at all. Like we were just straight up for morale reasons and raiding, like to deal with that boss. And that's not even considering what Fyrak was at the time as well.
Fyrak, some aspects was easier than Tendril, I want to say. Like the way they did the nerf changes and whatnot. Till the last change where they just made Tendril easier than Heroic.
Yeah. The Fyrak intermission was just cringe, man. It's just ass. That is one of the worst phases on a end mythic boss.
Yeah, it was pretty unenjoyable.
So I do like in War Within where you get hilariously strong to where the bosses should fall over, right? As time goes on, instead of sitting around waiting for Blizzard to nuke the difficulty. Like that never feels good.
I can still see Silken Court being a pretty big fucking wall.
Yeah, Silken Court.
That fight is. I mean, that fight was much more of an abomination than it is currently. But that thing, I'm really curious to see how that looks on live in the World First Race. That's going to be very fun.
I'm going to give you a spoiler. It's going to be dog shit for everyone that isn't Liquid.
I mean,
it'll probably be dog shit for Liquid too. It's just Arthur's going to fucking wank it because it's going to be a hard fight.
And Echo is probably going to spaceship UI that shit somehow.
And he sneaked out Lou in the chat.
Dude, I didn't even realize that was a thing. That fucking sneaked out Lewis shit is funny as fuck. The fact that they weren't pressing a button for
that's good.
Like I didn't even realize what that was until I saw. I think Frank is the guy who's controlling like Max's like clips channel and his like YouTube. When he put that fucking thing up, I was like, wait, what the fuck is this? And then he even put in that clip the clip of I think Maximum talking to the Echo guys after. Have you seen the video at all or no?
Yeah.
It's like talking. It's like, oh yeah, we pressed the button. What the fuck? Also, that
their
stuff
came out within 0.1 seconds of each other. Like,
yeah,
also, dude, totally.
That macro shit needs to go away. That macro shit is fucking terrible.
Yeah, I hope that's like the turning point for Blue to be like, yo, Private Aura's dog shit. Let's not do that, or let's not tune a fight so hard that even with Private Auras, you have to break the Private Aura to beat the fight.
Like in season 2, the experiments fight. The fact that the charges for Private Aura. That's fine. Who cares? The fact that the blazes were Private Aura, that's fine. Who cares? But there's some mechanics where you fucking players will try to break the game to not deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably shouldn't be a mechanic if that's the case. Like,
And there's been talks of like mythic rating is just slowly dying because of the increasing difficulty too. From what I've heard some talks of it, but I don't know how valid that stuff is.
I I understand the point, but I think that WoW players and Mythic Raiders in general are probably too stubborn to ever stop.
That's fair.
Well, I mean, as a trend, MMOs are dying.
Yeah,
WoW isn't really growing, especially at the high end.
no, it's just it's more or less staying the same.
Yeah.
Specifically, the high end is probably shrinking.
I've gotten way off track.
Yeah, kind of whatever. We went on a tangent.
It's whatever, man. Because like I said, I came into this. Oh, we'll do like a warrior retrospective, but nothing really changed, so there's not too much.
Yeah, I
to
don't
really,
know, man. Like
there's not much to really talk
the
about.
retrospective is fucking give us cool new shit or
We just want new stuff, some different stuff. You know what? How about we do that? What are you gonna say,
Pretty much
Gajeel?
the TLDR. That's pretty much just the TLDR of hey, it's another complete cycle of zero creativity, and you know we've gotten nothing. I mean, I think the hero talents are good overall. Like Slayer's pretty good, and like Thane is cool, even though it just has some tuning problems right now, and the annoying ass anti synergy in Mountain Thane is annoying. I mean that exists in the other trees too, but and then like each of these hero talent trees has some form of CDR tied to one thing, and then anger management, and then anger management doesn't affect everything, and it's like specifically like I was gonna say that earlier with arms, like especially with demolish, that shit is turning into like old unholy DK. You just slam your stuff on cooldown and nothing ever lines up anymore, and it's just completely unsatisfying.
If there, I guess the next thing going, and I'll start with you, Mr. Gajeel. Do you prefer if I say Gajeel
Sure.
or Gildneas? Do you care? I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Is that
Oh, lol.
I will call him my lord. Actually, no, I can't. There's a
Oh,
we have a new warrior in my guild. His name's Cheek Lord. That guy owns.
there you go. Right on.
He's the lord. Um, but if there was something new you would want to like add or change, I guess that's the question. Like all like podcasty things fucking ask. What what's something you specifically would want for warrior, even if it's bringing
Can I say
something back
something
old?
really quick before we go on this like new stuff tangent?
Yar.
The one fucking sick thing they did this beta cycle was unhinged. That change was so fucking good.
Also, just killing Hurricane. Fucking
yeah,
die, Hurricane.
Hurricane
Die.
dying is good, but like the buff to unhinged was so sick, and the fact that they gave it to Fury too, just something that's been asked for a while. It was really good.
Execute windows are actually kind of fun where you don't even hit your main button and you just like build up your button and let the unhinged cast it. It's actually
Yeah, it's sick.
it is actually kind of fun for those
It's
windows.
the way it worked back in Legion too.
Really?
Press Ravager, and fucking unhinged, and it just casts mortal strikes for you.
Oh,
Yeah, it was sick.
Because unhinged came from the Thomas Argeras tier bonus for arms.
oh,
So that's where that came from.
I
It
did not
was
know that.
and they turned it into a legendary in Shadowland, which was terrible and you never played. I think it was like okay in PvP just because of the way that that works in PvP, but you never played
Your
that.
Unhinged was gimmick as fuck.
Yeah, pretty much.
In any case, new stuff. Gajeel.
I mean, for new stuff, like I'm kind of hard banked on like what I could do that's new, so it's kind of ironic that I complain that we don't get any new stuff. But just like stuff that I would do that exists now, or like that would make sense. Like I've talked about it before, but like I don't know why, since like they heavily emphasize anger management in just like the overall design and fantasy of the class, with like people want CDR, like just why is the same talent in all three spec trees? Like every spec has access to this thing. Why is it just not in the general tree? It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know, take anger management out of all the spec trees and put it where better immunity is, because that thing is shit anyway.
Or make it
Like,
like an actual capstone, because then we'd have a good capstone.
yeah, or it could be a capstone potentially.
I've always
But I
said
think
put it where dual wield spec is, or like
that
the weapon spec node.
Yeah, that could work too, because then they can get rid of that, because this, like, it's just a boring, oh, here's 5% damage that you just have to take, because, it's just there to eat your points.
I mean, you can take AM Spiteful and put it as the avatar capstone, make AM affect avatar too.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of my other thing too that I was gonna say, is I've kind of said before, is like I think that anger management should be WAD anger management, where it affects your entire kit. I think the only thing it didn't affect was like I think it was just rally, but it did everything. It was all your cooldowns, so like Avatar, Blade Storm, whatever, all your stuff, and even some of like your defensive stuff like Stormbolt and I think Shockwave. Like it pretty much affected everything. I think that's what it should do, because especially with AM on just in general, like it's weird when it's more of an annoying thing on Fury, where it's like playing AM and your avatar just doesn't line up sometimes because of the annoying CDR that just doesn't work with each other. And it's not a big deal on when you play Berserkers Tournament, because they just trigger each other anyway. But like when you're playing Titans, it's more annoying. It's like you don't get your crit damage or your crit bonus. New avatar,
Yeah.
so that's kind of annoying. So like having AM affect everything would be kind of cool. And like I said, this is kind of annoying with the spec tree and spec trees and the hero talents, is like there's CDR that doesn't really synergize with each other, and it just throws everything into its own rotation, which is annoying. Like Slayer's CDR on Bladestorm works pretty well when you play RA, but as soon as you drop RA, that shit turns into a fucking mess. Like
Yeah, Blazestorm
it's
turns into like a 20-second cooldown and it just feels like shit every
it's
time you press it.
it's like it's not necessarily like the frequent uses feel bad. It's like that. No, okay, nothing outside of when you pull the boss or like that first pull and Mythic Plus, and maybe like later down the dungeon. Like nothing is not having everything line up anymore is just. I don't know. I've just never liked that. I like when things flow together and line up, and it makes more sense that way to me. But that's just my opinion.
I feel like
I think there's a
it just makes it more skill based. I think where it feels like the effort you're put in and like lining shit up actually feels good. And it's also one of the reasons why Demolish doesn't feel as good as it could, because it does not line
Yeah,
up correctly with your cooldowns. You just end up fucking sending it. But I
yeah, and
think off of which, sorry, go ahead.
it's just like it's like it's like this huge hitting ability, but it's like you're just gonna want to throw it on cooldown and not like line it up. And tuning doesn't allow that, because it's just more effective and you get higher damage by just hitting stuff on cooldown rather than holding. And
Like imagine
when you
if fucking, sorry, go ahead. I just kept interrupting you. Sorry.
oh, you're good. I was done.
I was gonna say, like, imagine if they just in the hero talent just added Colossus Smash increases the like has an additional modifier for Demolish, and then it's like, okay, we want to line this shit up. Even if it comes off cooldown earlier, you can use the choice to send it earlier, but it's like, no, we want to line this shit up. Which would also in turn make Warbreaker more interesting in AoE, when currently Warbreaker is worse in AoE. Weirdly enough,
it's
you take
just
blunt
functionally
instruments and then
broken.
yeah, just take blunt instruments and in for the kill. But I think that'd actually be a really good idea. Because if taking that whole Spiteful Serenity idea, if you just take the like maybe you could move the torments somewhere else potentially, but just adding AM, or not, maybe not even Spiteful specifically, but it's like, hey, do you want your class to be faster paced, more cooldowns, or do you want those cooldowns to be more impactful, right? So you just have the choice node of your cooldowns are stronger or your cooldowns are faster. And then I think it would be a way more interesting choice, especially based on their potential encounter design, and how you would want to play the class, or which class might be better in which situation, right?
Yeah, like
Uh,
I think they kind of I don't know. Our general tree has still a little bit too much throughput, which is a little annoying. It's like I go log on to like my DK now, and their general tree is still has some issues and nothing's perfect, but like there's so much less throughput in there. You kind of are just like picking stuff that you want or could use, rather than checking the boxes of having all your throughput. And the
DK
amount of
class tree is insane.
and the amount of 2-point gates is really annoying. Like they should just I don't think 2-point gates should exist in the game. Period for any class or spec. Like it's just dumb. It's literally
They've
just
been
there to
getting
limit what.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It's like 2-point gates are literally just they serve no purpose other than to limit what you get to play with. Like how does that make the game better for anyone?
Like
So
they have limited every single class's 2 points. Like they've been actively taking them away from most.
yeah, and we unfortunately didn't get any of that. What I can see and from what I can remember, if I've missed something, please tell me. But like the important
No, it's
stuff,
all still there.
it's all still there. Like the stuff gating the capstones on spec and class trees. Like vicious contempt is still 2 points. Like bloodletting on arms is 2 points, even though it's or bloodborne is 2 points on arms and it's 1 on fury. It's like it doesn't make any sense.
Like crushing force and
But
overwhelming rage. Like I somewhat understand the later capstone, like the later stuff being 2 points because it's more impactful. I mean, even though shit like armor to the teeth is boring as fuck, like having it be two
yeah,
points so you're not doing stuff like running spear and roar and like that kind of like I think running having those options if it's good is interesting, but it kind of saves the
and
player from themselves a little bit by having those 2 points. But any 2 point in the middle of the tree just feels overly restrictive.
yeah, and I don't know. It's just like, and not necessarily like, because obviously button blood isn't fun. So I'm not saying more buttons means more fun. Like there needs to be a good balance of, and I think that I I was kind of hoping like initially when they were going back to like older class tree, it was going to be strictly a lot more passive stuff, which for the most part it is. But there's like still a bit more. There's still too much like actual additive buttons in there for me. But I don't know. That probably it just depends on what you're playing. It's not too bad for Fury, but arms like there's so many rotational buttons you can get in the tree. It's like why? It's just adding all this bloat. But like for current Fury, for me, if I could change anything, obviously I'm like taking anger management out of the spec trees, putting it where the specialization things are, just to that way everyone has it anyway, and then they can just kind of build around it. Where for having it, um, for Fury, like just kick out single-minded Fury talent because it's just like why am I spending a talent point to do less damage on purpose? Like it's just it serves zero purpose. Like they fixed this on DK by getting rid of because this was kind of a choice node on DK before where you could pick a talent to make using a two-hander better, but then you're still losing damage. So it's like why? So they got rid of that and just gave it to the spell book. They should just do that for the people that like I get there's still a community that likes that. I'm not saying like fuck those guys, but like give them the talent point back so they can still have the same amount of points to play with as everyone else. Uh Vicious Contempt, obviously make it a 1 point, but just maybe not give the full 50% damage for 1 point. That's kind of crazy. So just maybe make it like 35% damage for 1 point. I don't know how Frenzy has still existed for this is going to be the third expansion now, where we just have complained and complained and complained, and it's still here. Obviously, Hack and Slash is too strong, so either nuke that or either remove it and replace it with something else, or just tone it down so we can fix other problems. Recklessness is not a good cooldown. Like cut the rage gen in half, make it give 50% crit, and make it, not just spell crit or something.
I remember when we
Give
had
it,
a tunnel vision in the Slayer tree, and
yeah,
it's the same
yeah,
problem as Frenzy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is bad," and they just took it away.
yeah.
It's
Like
really
apply
weird how
that.
Frenzy's just not a but like you are frenzied. You're not frenzying the thing you're fucking hitting, right? Like why isn't Frenzy just a buff on you that you keep up, if anything?
Yeah, or yeah, something. I don't know. Like
I'm gonna say it because
it,
it's a funny bit. Bring
it's.
back Spurious Slash.
I mean, I was just about to say that. I know like Pure Slash is kind of a meme, but it's like at least it allowed target switching without being completely punished. I know it was like purely a single target button, but there was some bosses where like there was a little bit of ad switching. Like I could think of like Radiance as a good example,
Sakureth.
Yeah,
or
Radiance Furious Slash was actually real.
What
well,
was
just for like
what did Fury Slash do?
It's literally just current frenzy, but you press the button.
it
So
Like
it's
was
like
like
you it's like a target swap
so
for your Frenzy buff?
no, it's like you
no,
press it
so
and it stacks 3 times and it gives you 2% haste per stack.
it basically just gives back the rotational filler from Legion because they took it away going into BFA and turned it into a talent. So that's kind of what created the whirlwind on single target for Fury. But then you could restore that, and by Furious Slashing, it gave you the haste buff, so you just had to use it every so often to make sure you didn't drop the buff.
Okay,
But
so
at least it allowed target switching.
You
So-
really only used it on like a couple fights. There's
Yeah,
like I did some
pure-
trolling where I used it on like every fight in fucking Eternal Palace, but
It was like a pure single target thing for the most part. But Frenzy,
it was
we don't like it, or just allow us to target switch or something. There you go. I still think that the Odin's Fury and Onslaught swaps are just horrible and don't make sense. I don't know, it's like okay now that we've kind of passed
also
these out a little bit. It's still bad.
Cruel Strikes is just like way worse, so it feels way harder to grab Odin's Fury in single target builds.
Exactly. Which, like Dancing
Just
Blades could be good.
Dancing Blades like this is capstone
gonna
issue
make-
again. All the capstones suck.
well,
Yeah,
like how
like-
Dancing Blades was made for Annihilator, basically, and it just didn't change when they got rid of it. I don't know.
in a way.
You
Yeah,
just
somehow
use season
everything
3
sucks.
tier in place of Dancing Blades. Boom, done.
Yeah, no, literally, yeah, this has been talked about like a number of times in Skyhold and stuff, and it's like just give season 3 tier either the CDR portion or the damage portion for like Bloodthirst.
I think
As
it
one
should
of
be
the
damage,
capstone.
not DDR.
I
it doesn't
don't really
matter.
care which one. Just like do one of those. You had an entire tier set based around pressing Odin's Fury. Like surely turn it into a fucking capstone.
In
On the
Titan-
topic of Frenzy,
Hmm?
I think they could do something like you retain the Frenzy on the target. So like if I build up 4 Frenzy on Sarkareth, then I switch to the ad, right? I rebuild Frenzy on the ad, but when I switch back to Sarkareth, it stays there. Kind of like Fatal Mark. Obviously,
Get buff.
yeah. Or you build up 4 stacks Frenzy, and then when you switch, you lose like 1 or 2. So you don't lose the whole thing. Which is less cool, but it's like a middle ground between what they want to do. Right?
The talent's just boring throughput that makes it feel bad to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's just like being punished for playing the game correctly, and I just don't think that's good for anybody. Like regardless of spec, I'm sure there's other talents like this one that kind of exists like that. So, um, the 2-point gates are annoying. Onslaught is all right. It's just like an added button play. I think the Bladestorm Ravager choice is kind of cool. Even though I kind of miss the days where we could just have both. No, that was only one expansion. If like hypothetically they took anger management out with the reckless abandon choice node, we could fill it with something there, with something. Maybe like an old cooldown, like just I don't know, like old bloodbath or something.
Oh, Bloodbath.
I think
Upgrades your
Odin,
RA to Battle Cry.
yeah, just something like that. I think the Odin's Fury should just give whirlwind stacks like without Titanic Rage, like needing to take a whole extra talent to just kind of make it feel good and like to make the rotation, feel better is dumb, and they should rework that. Just
Does
make
the
it I don't obviously just rework Titanic Rage to do something else, like further
I
increase the damage some way, and they just need to remove the giving the meat cleaver part. Like I think Odin's Fury should just do that
I
baseline.
think it should also give the enrage baseline. I think.
Yeah, that too. That would be nice. Because there's like a lot of I don't know, just from like my time in the pre-patch, like there's a lot of these fights where like the burst AoE comes out, but like not having whirling or not having Odin's Fury give you whirlwind and like needing to take a whole talent for that and like sacrificing the single target for like these like 1 or 2 moments in the boss fight is just like it feels kind of scummy to do that, but it's like it makes it feel so much better in those moments. So just like being able to do that all the time without, losing single target to do that would be cool. Not a ton. I mean, it wouldn't be like a huge buff, but it's just convenience, quality of life.
Or
Yeah,
make
like-
the amp relevant, not 10%, like 20 or some shit, and wait until the dot.
I feel like they should make the ability to cleave just a duration buff instead of 4 hits.
Dude, yes, literally
like,
yes.
Because like
And
literally you hit the button, all right, for the next 8 seconds your hits cleave. Thank please.
Yeah.
Like and then we don't have to deal with the fucking you don't have to deal with the bloat of needing two talents just to improve whirlwind. You don't need that shit. That shit also buffs fucking thunderclap.
yeah, and just like needing 2 talents to actually be able to hit more than 1 target is lame. I don't think that's good design.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like I don't think Fury needs a ton of changes. Like I think what's there is cool, but I'm still open to like obviously some kind of rework or something.
I
That's kind
definitely
of it
think
though.
Arms
Like,
needs the complete rework for sure.
but like I could go on Arms all day. Like that foundation, like that house is it's like a mansion built on like a landslide or like the side of a mountain that's risk of just completely falling over. I don't know. It's just
It's a
like that foundation.
$200,000 house that you can't buy insurance for.
Pretty much, it's really bad.
What
I,
about?
I mean, I could
Hmm?
go,
I
I could
mean,
go all day.
honestly, you mainly talked about Fury. Feel free to talk about Arms, dude.
So yeah, like I think a huge thing with Arms right now is like they kind of similar to Fury with going into Dragonflight. They kind of brought back. They kind of like picked a bunch of pieces from either previous expansion class design or like old tier set or legendary or whatever. Like they picked out a bunch of old stuff and they kind of like shoved it into the space. And for Arms, like this huge emphasis on like the like this whole bleed idea, like I don't like it and it doesn't fit. Like we complained about this in BFA and granted it was too much and we're not near that level of like the bleed thing, but like who's playing Arms to just like hit somebody and or hitting the mobs and like just waiting for them to die? It's like no, I'm playing Arms to smash whatever's in front of me. Like I'm trying to smash their fucking face in, not waiting for them to die slowly.
Yeah, because I'm
And
fine if
like
like your hits make them bleed, and it's just a little
yeah,
extra damage that happens.
I-
But Ren sucks.
I'm not at. So that's pretty much what I was like segueing into here is like this might be a controversial thing to say, but like I think that they need to remove Ren from the game again. Like my best example of this working is you just look at Missa Pandaria. Missa Pandaria, Ren was completely removed from the game. Like it didn't exist on Arms. Like it being a prot thing is new, other than like shit from like vanilla and stuff, where technically every spec has Ren, but you get what I mean. You go to Mop and like Ren just doesn't exist. It's gone. Like it's goodbye. And you have deep wounds across all 3 specs, which I think that would be cool to like have deep wounds come back to Fury, but not have it be the mastery, obviously. But just having a bleed on all the specs, that's kind of there. It does a little bit of damage. Like maybe 5-6% is perfect. It fits with the theme, and it fits. So just like get rid of Ren, rip the power out of Ren and put it back into your actual spells. Like Legion didn't have bleeds except for, I mean, Ren was a talent, but you only played it on like pure single target because it was so expensive. It was like 30 rage, so it was very expensive. And even then, Avatar, which was in the same choice node, was like not even far behind. And depending on how long or short boss fights were, Avatar was just better. So like, yeah, just remove Ren from the game. I think this like weird emphasis of like bleed spec versus not bleed spec on Arms, just their whole idea of that has completely failed. And you've been playing bleeds this whole time, regardless of whether you're focusing on them or not, because of just the nature of dot damage in the game, damage off the global.
One of my favorite parts of like how Arms played with the amount of rage we had is the fact that I didn't have to think about it. Right, in season after the changes in season 1, 2, and 3, before the rage adjustments, you were just thunderclapping in your rotation for tactician procs, and then you just had Rend working the whole time. You never had to think about it. It was just always there.
It
And
probably says something that the best time that like the people reminded of like the best time of Arms is when you don't have to give a fuck about Ren. Like when it just takes care of itself. That's
yeah,
like when people like it the most.
pretty much when it's there and you don't have to think about it, like it's here. And like playing like Cataclysm again and Ren's in Cataclysm, like you pull a boss and you push Ren 1 time because Mortal Strike just refresh, like what Bloodletting does in Execute where it refreshes Ren, it just does that all the time in Cataclysm, regardless of the boss's HP. You push Mortal Strike, it refreshes your Ren. Like if they could go back to that, I would like hate it less. But I don't know. I don't like Rend. I don't think I'm ever gonna like it. It just not a fan of that. I don't like the Blood and Thunder thing where it locks spreading of dots to Like, why does it only hit 5 targets? Like, what's the point of that? I
Yeah,
don't,
we didn't
I
even
don't like
talk
that.
about target capping at all.
I honestly, I don't think it's much of an issue for Warrior anymore. It's
And
really just Blood and Thunder and Whirlwind, right?
yeah, and just like for arms right now where we have rend and deep wounds, it's like, okay, in AoE, I need to hit cleave to apply this bleed and this dot. Then I need to hit thunderclap to apply this dot. And it's just, I don't like, I think adding setup into warrior doesn't fit the nature of it, period. Like warrior is, to me, is always just, I run into this person and hit all my cooldowns and fuck them in the face instantly, no matter what is going on. Like this whole setup idea, and it makes a little bit more sense than arms, kind of, where you,
It's
this
like that
idea of like,
weird
oh,
tactical kind of warrior kind of
these like,
thing.
oh, weird slow hit kind of thing. Like sure, but I
The
don't think it
blanket
fits.
setup doesn't sit well with me. Like in again back to Legion, you set up a combo, that's fine. But like setting yourself up entirely for the fight at hand is eh.
Yeah, like needing to apply 2 different all the time is unfun, in my opinion. I just think it should go away, like more like mop, where you just have deep wounds, and deep wounds was not the mastery, so it was just kind of there to just do damage. And that's it. You didn't think about it. It's just, but it's there thematically and it fits, and I think that's the place that it should be.
I think Bladestorm and Ravager should apply rend.
That too, potentially, if it's gonna stay. Um, yeah, like I I kind of just like not having it because then it's just it's just
Yeah,
less
yeah, agree,
variance in
agree.
a way. But I get what you mean. Like there's 2 solutions: either improve the gameplay of it so it's not so clunky, or I mean they did take steps to do that, which I appreciate it, with not needing to have thunderclap or like the blood and thunder thing. Now you just have it if you have both abilities. Like that's a huge quality of life, and the fact they both cost the same amount is great. I know it's like technically still a single target increase to manually hit rend, but it's like, is it worth the extra keybind? No.
It's like
So
0.1%. It's yeah,
it doesn't even matter. So like, great, that's cool. But
maybe like 5, but again,
I also really like that one of the primo abilities in the arms talent tree is Skull Splitter, which is a button that's supposed to hit you so hard that it breaks through the armor of your helmet to literally split your skull in half and murder you. Yet it's just a your bleeds tick faster. Like what the fuck is that?
yeah, it's
Like,
like,
and
oh,
you get a
now I
little
it's
have
angry.
to now I have
like,
to go out of my way to refresh my dots that I don't already like even more. Thank you. I like that.
yeah, let me
No,
refresh Rend before Colossus Smash so my Skull Splitter doesn't tick it out mid combo, so I have to fucking hit it again.
yeah, it's just, it makes, I don't think that's very fun. It's basically just exsanguinate. Gross.
But worse.
I think that I mean, it's kind of weird going on the 3rd expansion now where they don't rework the arms mastery, because like I just, from what I remember back in the day, every time we go into a new expansion, like the arms mastery gets reworked, and they just haven't done that. And I think
This
that would
one is
be,
not fun.
I don't like it. I think they should, I mean, I don't even know if I want flat damage amps anymore, but just like playing with the old mastery, kind of just being passive, and not your buttons not relying on this damage amp through a source of either like amping up CS a shit ton in Legion, or like the deep wounds mastery we have now, with needing to like wanting to apply it first and then do your damage, is nice.
It
Because
also doesn't
like
make sense. How does a smash apply a deep wound, right? Like, just thematically speaking, from a design standpoint, you're hitting someone with a blunt smash and then they're bleeding heavily.
yeah, like you're technically breaking open a piece of their armor so you can like get in there with a real weapon or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. Well, the
Yeah,
thing, going adding that with what you talked about before with moving like the AM or the cooldown amp into your base tree, I think would be really interesting because you could do that, and then with doing that, then you could turn the mastery back to something maybe more Colossus Smash amp focused, like within that window. Then that actually gives you, depending on the fighting counter, like a big fucking amp window if you take the quote unquote spiteful serenity, or just I guess it just makes your cooldowns stronger, uh, talent whatever. Because like imagine if you actually had a mastery that did that, and you could actually play arms Like you could technically play arms like the AM way, or you could play this like really big, massive setup where you hit. I know you said you didn't like the whole setup style of it, but it would allow a different kind of gameplay if the mastery wasn't just, hey, if it has bleeds, you do this much more damage. Cool.
Yeah, I think yeah, I just don't like the damage amp from deep wounds. I kind of liked the old style deep wounds where you get a crit and it just does X% of that damage as the bleed, and it was just universal across the specs. I think that kind of fit better, and it like gave incentive to want critical strike on your gear, which we just kind of don't anymore. At least on Fury, you haven't cared about crit on your gear in so long. Whereas like arms kind
right?
of
I guess kind of BFA a little bit.
WAD.
And
WAD
ha-
was like the last time you wanted crit on like all your gear as Fury.
and half the reason Colossus wants it so much is your crits give you more demolishes, and your crits give you
And just critting demolish.
yeah, it's I don't haste crit's just kind of fucking boring, man. Like it's just yeah, well, I don't know. I guess it just comes down to the fact that versatility is just flat, and the mastery doesn't really. The mastery is just there. So then,
Honestly, delete versatility.
That needs to fucking
Put it
die.
on PvP gear only as like an extra
literally, just
bonus
bring
person.
back resilience and make it not affect PVE, and let the PvPers do their thing. Like it's just
Give back
whatever.
multi-strike. Multi-strike was just versatility, but cooler, like thematically speaking.
And technically, multi-strike is gonna bring more variance to the game, but I guess
It fills the same role, though, you know.
in a way, yeah. Or just like, or maybe a new stat. I don't know.
But if
Usually,
they,
I'm
but if
I'm
they
cool
got
with
rid,
what.
sorry, go ahead.
Fucking get rid of versatility. That shit sucks.
But if they
It
got rid of
reeks.
verse, all of those fucking verse stacking classes, they wouldn't. They would have to
Oh
completely
no, they
change
actually
all
have
of
to
them.
fucking design them to be good. Like
Windwalker
Jesus
Monk would
Christ.
actually want something more than versatility.
Okay, to
They
be
might
fair,
like
Windwalker's
Windwalker
fixed.
Mastery.
Did they fix it?
Oh yeah, they fucking love haste
Ooh.
because Fist of Fury stacks. I'm pretty sure, anyways. Last I heard, they like a lot of haste because it ramps their Fist of Fury damage.
If I
Yeah.
could change arms mastery, I'd either make it like Shaman Mastery, where your damage ramps up the lower your target health is. Shaman is healing, right, for resto, but for arms it'd be your damage done to the target.
So kind of like Dev Evoker, but reversed.
Yeah.
Would also
Or
be good for execute niche kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. Like you can lean into the execute niche without having fatality, without having to spam execute. Like there's other ways to accomplish that. Um, or I'd have it be like Outlaw Rogue, where your attacks have a chance to proc something, and that proc would be sudden death, and you play around like an execute proc
Yeah,
instead of having it be a talent.
this is like pretty heavily cooked in the Warrior Discord private channels. It's been talked about a lot.
It's just basically the old mastery then. It's like it's kind of what Outlaw Rogue Mastery is. It's just the old arms mastery. It's just randomly trigger extra attacks. Opportunity strikes is what it's called.
Make the
It was the
mastery
talent
mortal combo.
Legion. So I think that, I mean, that's kind of what I was going to say is I kind of wish the mastery was opportunity strikes again, but with the added effects from Legion, where it triggers, kind of leans into what you had said too, where like you get more damage the lower the target the health is. That's how opportunity strikes worked in Legion as a talent. The lower health the target was, the higher the chance that the attacks would trigger, and they gave you rage. So like every time you got an opportunity strike, it gave you like 5 rage, I think. And they
Yeah.
triggered more often the lower the health the target was. So like the start of the boss fight, your rage economy is a little bit slower, but as the boss fight gets like as the boss gets lower and lower, like you get more you start like getting faster, getting more resource, and it like would then fuel the execute problem where like you kind of just have enough to play with until you get to execute with unless you have all the talents, and that's like annoying.
What if you made it like human racial, but as a mastery? So your crit and haste are like mastery percent more effective or potent the lower the target gets, or something like some shit like that. So the lower the target gets, you get more haste and more crit ramping from your mastery.
That would be kind of sick. I feel like that would like get out of control later on, though. Maybe because it's like a percent amp or something. So it's like
Yeah.
later on in the expansion, you just have like 50% haste and crit ramping up to like 75%, and everyone else is stuck at like 40 or something.
Well, but the less of those stats you have, like the more mastery you have, the less of those stats you have, right?
True.
The like only thing I don't like about like added stats ramping with like kind of with what you're saying is like it's just leaning into like again the arms just being a terrible spec and farm because the bosses die too fast and you're just not getting any value. Whereas
Yeah, that's true.
like with kind of all I found it here. Here, I'll put it and read it. This was the Opportunity Strikes version from Legion, and I think like if they brought this back as the mastery, which is kind of what it used to be, but with like the added effects below from Legion, would be awesome. Because then it would fuel your abilities.
Yeah, because that'd actually be interesting. Because then it would.
They should just make that a capstone.
Because
Like,
it technically
make tactician.
Because it buffs your execute phase. It doesn't wildly make your start or end of fight that much different, right? Like something like a Dev Evoker where they're just bursting for a billion and then they have nothing and then they peter off, or that's how they used to work, right? So I think that'd be interesting, and it's technically and if the bonus attack also generated, well, it generates 5 rage, it wouldn't be like a normal like white attack, right? It wouldn't be like a Wind Fury hit.
Well, the thing is, this would have no use on AoE, whereas you can get around the Dev Evoker thing by having full value of master during like Avatar or some shit. Same way Devoker does it.
Gotcha.
I feel like you just make this a capstone that replaces Fatality.
Yeah, on that I'm on board with for sure.
Fatality
I
just sucks, man.
think
I don't
Fatality-
even necessarily hate it. It's just like because like the concept is fine. Everyone liked Inkpod, but the reason people liked Inkpod is because you had this like cool little lineup window that you tried to make work on every fight, where it's like, okay, I press my coral, I press my fucking, my Rocky boy that gives the damage amp, and then my big coral pop does damn, and like that was cool and fun to play around. And there's just nothing like that for Fatality because they disabled all of it, except for Test of Might, notably. But we don't play it, so it doesn't matter.
pretty much. It's Coraling Pod is a cringe combination. I don't know. I didn't think that was fun personally, but
I liked it, but I don't know. I'm kind of biased. I like that entire tier, and everyone hated it. So
Yeah, they buffed Fatality from a 1 minute to a 2 minute to a 3 minute duration. I remember progging during Sarkareth, or not Sarkareth, during Razagath prog.
yeah, you had to
I remember
throw while she was breathing.
I don't think Heroic Throw didn't. It was your Mortal Strikes. So you had to dodge the breath, and then while the boss was sitting at the end of the platform, you had to go back and hit the boss with the Mortal Strike and hope you procced a Fatality that would last until you got into on the third platform. Because if you didn't proc, you would just lose all stacks of it and you just get no fucking value from it. Because they would just fall off before you could actually hit the boss enough for it to stay stacked. It was so fucking bad.
I remember people complaining about that, but I never did the boss. So
basically like
losers.
you would stack it up in the first phase, then the boss would essentially go immune and then do lightning breaths across platforms you were on, and then you had to chase the boss after the breath because the breath was so wide it would just kill you if you got too close. So you would have to chase the boss after the breath and hit the boss while it was AFK on the edge of the platform, also hoping that the boss wasn't near the next set of the other ad. So you had to do that and hope that you procced a Fatality on the single Mortal Strike you hit the boss with before it did another breath. Because I think you had maybe, depending on the timing, you maybe had 1, maybe 2 chances to try and get that Fatality to proc to keep your stacks going into the next phase. And then on top of that, you had to do the entire phase, another phase where the boss was untargetable. And try, actually, was the boss targetable during the third phase with the 3 big boys? No, it was just flying around. So you had to do the same fucking shit on the third platform again to try and keep Fatality up just for the execute burn in the last phase. It was terrible. And Fatality has received 0 like we got that aura buff, and they changed all the aura buffs, and fatalities received nothing for either of those. So now it's just awful. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't hate the concept. It's like clearly
The
not work.
implementation
Yeah,
is
it's been
rigged.
pretty bad. The execution has been horrible,
I mean, the
and
whole
it's led people
yeah.
to hate the idea.
The whole idea is, hey, you do more damage and execute, which they can literally do that in a billion different ways that doesn't involve stacking
Well,
a single target buff, debuff
it's
on the
kind of the
fucking enemy.
opposite.
Wait,
It's
it just
sorry. Go ahead,
you
Garms.
could just make it like consume all the stacks and do X% more damage per stack. That is a decent workaround to whatever the hell they're going on now.
Oh, so the stacks technically amp themselves?
So say you have 10 stacks going to execute right, you press Colossus Smash, consume the stacks, and then your Colossus Smash does 10% if we're using the modifier of 1 per like more damage.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it adds a modifier to your burst window instead of just being
Yeah.
a flat damage amp that, for some reason,
Mhm.
only works with Test of Might. So if you want to like try and parse, you're trying to hit a big Test of Might window without hitting your execute and execute phase to try and pop fatality like a fucking balloon. So oh god,
Yeah.
it's off, man. Test of Might sucks.
It turns into something you can control instead of and works with the rest of your kit instead of like, oh hey, it just popped on this execute. Whoops.
Oopsie. I just lost 30% damage on my fatality.
You're
Yeah,
like
I don't
trying
know. It's
Yeah.
like I feel like it's too passive to be a capstone. And it's too annoying to play. Like, in my opinion, capstones shouldn't really have downsides. Like, they should just be fucking good, and they should be or like build defining.
it's a shittier Reap the Storm.
Yeah. It's basically just like extra damage from your Mortal Strike throughout every part of the fight except for execute.
Yeah. It pulls up all your Mortal Strike damage and then same way like way Reap the Storm procs off Mortal Strike.
Yeah.
Except instead of Reap the Storm being constant and amplified by everything,
Yeah, it's just
fatality
two.
just pops it at once.
And it's AP scaling, and Warrior has like
Yeah.
icky strength scaling. I guess Arms is pretty high because of Test of Might, but not anymore.
Well, how about you, Mr. Garms? What would you like to see? I mean, you've probably talked about a couple of things, but is there anything else specific you'd want to see that's like new or different going forward?
I brought up the arms thing earlier with how I change mastery. Like everything I want to do goes off of changing arms mastery.
Current mastery sucks.
I don't think arms can be salvaged in its current state. Like they have to do something wild, crazy, like something new. They tried it with the Torment, like Blade Master Torment. And that was like cool. It's a cool concept. It's shitty implementation, but like the idea, the way where they think about it, I like. For Fury, I would, if not remove Recklessness, give an alternative to it, like make Battle Cry and put it on a choice note or something. And in addition to that, I would fix Unbridled Ferocity and make Depths of Insanity like, hey, it's like Burning Rush, but you have 100% leech during this period, and you do 100% critical damage, or something wacky like that. But yeah, I'd adjust Recklessness in some way for Fury.
Do you think Fury should get maybe not as strict as the arms' rage economy thing, but especially going forward with seemingly 3 expansions of how Slayer is going to interact with the class, right? Do you think Fury also should get some form of rage economy change?
Just nuke the rage gen from Recklessness, and it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
Especially with the new RA, it plays very perfect. The way Rec is now didn't exist. Because it plays fine outside of Rec, right? Like, as soon as you're out of that, the rage feels fine.
I think
Yeah.
maybe you could like bump up the base rage economy if you remove the Rec rage gen. Like,
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like, put Rec on a choice node and, like, make Battle Cry the alternative.
I honestly, I think you just bump up the rage economy for everything in Fury's kit, and you remove the rage gen from Recklessness, and instead it's just like 30% haste or 20% haste or something. So you like retain that speed, but you're not overcapped every 2 GCDs. And then, me personally, I don't particularly like the version of RA that like makes your rampage transform your 2 generators. I think like it's supposed to be like the bursty option, but it's not really the bursty option. It's like just sustained damage. I think they should just I think they should remove that shit and bring back Legion Bloodbath and just attach that as like an affix to Reckless Abandon. So it's like when you press Rec, you get the Legion Bloodbath for the duration. And then slap like some crit damage onto Depths of Insanity, buff up Unbridled Ferocity a little bit.
Oh, and I also make Slaughtering Strikes proc off execute, not Raging Blow.
Or just
Yeah.
both.
Or both.
That
Fuck
way
it.
that's why that way it's not a dead talent for 80% of the boss fight.
There's like
Or
a lot more extensive changes that I would do too. Like I think the fact that there's a Bloodthirst side of the tree and a Raging Blow side of the tree is bad. I think that you could put all of those talents into one cluster and then just like do something entirely new.
Well, if they did the buff thing that I mentioned, where you just make where Whirlwind just gives you a buff where your shit just cleaves for like 8 seconds or whatever, if they did that, they could rework the right side of the tree. They could move all of those talents over to the left side of the tree, just kick single-minded fury out, and then you can put those raging blow talents on the left there, so then you have it all clustered up. Um, but then that also leaves innovation for that right area where you don't really need improved whirlwind and meat cleaver because like it feels very static where it's just like, okay, well, are you taking the execute talents or are you taking the AoE talents? And it's like you take everything else almost feels pretty much the same.
Oh, well, I mean, you don't even consider Massacre anymore. That shit's useless. So that probably needs to change. Either make it baseline or make it do something completely fucking different because that talent is completely dead right now. I don't think Thane takes it. Slayer definitely doesn't take it.
Same with
It's
arms. And for the kill is like Vicious Contempt, where it works off a health threshold, making Massacre also kind of similarly redundant there.
yeah, it's just I don't know.
Just put it with improved execute.
Yeah. I don't know what you do to replace it, to be honest. I feel like they could play more into give us like the old fucking Tomb of Sargeras tier for Fury or something as a talent node, or the Antorus tier set. One of the two,
What did those tier sets
or
do?
both. Antorus was like your rampage did damage as a bleed,
yeah.
and I can't remember the other one. Tomb of Sargeras was just like Raging Blow buffs Bloodthirst and Bloodthirst buffs Raging Blow. It was like the 2-piece, 4-piece. I can't remember what the 2-piece and 4-piece for Tomb of Sargeras or Antorus was. It was just like one was your rampage does bleed damage. Oh, and the other was brutal finish. That was the other thing.
Oh, I just remember something. I do like the idea of you can only use Raging Blow when you're enraged and as like a charge system. So you get enraged and then you dump all your Raging Blows for like a giant pocket burst of damage.
That was like
In-
what Mop,
Legion.
Mop and Legion. Yeah.
No, it's
What
Legion.
was it? It was
It's
just
only
Legion.
It's only Legion work like that.
I thought you got Raging Blow charges in Mop. I keep forgetting
Yep.
that Warlords existed.
So old Raging Blow procced off of Rage. So every time you triggered a Rage, you got a Raging Blow stack. You didn't spam it. Like
I see.
that was just Legion. You spammed it during it, but it did like such shitty damage.
Was it called
Because
something else at the time too? Because I feel like I remember that, but
Nah, it's always been It's been Raging Blow for a long
maybe
fucking time.
maybe it had a different like icon. Because I feel like it was like a red bloody icon before.
No, the original actually the original Raging Blow icon is what Crushing Blow is now. That's the original blow, and then the normal Raging Blow that we have now is what it turned into Mob via now.
Oh, okay. So maybe I remember that the crushing blow icon then.
Yeah, Crushing Blow icon is the original Raging Blow from that's in Cataclysm is when they put it in.
How about you, Mr. Zan? What would you change?
I already said it. Fucking get rid of the rage gen. I don't know, man.
Gotcha.
That cooldown's been the same for so long. Yeah,
Gotcha.
give it haste instead. Haste, it accomplishes everything that people cite as like the reason they like Rec now, except it doesn't have the glaring issue of overcapping rage by several thousand.
It'd be just like Unholy Frenzy, but like it would work a lot better. You wouldn't waste so much resource, but it accomplishes that goal of sped up rotation during your go, essentially.
I don't really have anything specific about arms to change. Just like everything, literally just start from scratch, go again.
Yeah, arms just throw it in the trash and go again. There's too many like talents in the trees that you like need to just play the fucking game normally that arms wants to take, but you can't have it all.
All right. So
And if you
I
can't rebuild from scratch, just go back to Legion Arms.
Yes,
I
yes.
have an arms cook I posted in a video a while back, but it is something that people might fucking despise, which is my arms cook, which is using the Empower system from Evoker, but instead as arms, where you charge up hits almost like, I'd say, like a Monster Hunter Greatsword user, to an extent where you are literally just doing big hits, big numbies, instead of like for the Empower system. My idea was we would have like, since it's like warrior focused, we'd have like medals. Like you would have up to through combat, you would earn up to 6 medals. And my idea of the whole rotation was you would earn these medals, and then you would play a essentially you would use like the because the empowered abilities are the you either press and hold or you hold and release for the charge of when they hit whatever, but it's essentially you play around your would essentially be your Colossus Smash window of, if you play correctly, you would build up these 6 medals, and then you could use those medals would, upon spending like an execute, or in this case, let's say we bring Skull Splitter back as a real button, like you would actually have like a really big Helm Splitter button that would have a sizable cooldown. But let's say it had like a 30-second cooldown, but then when you used it in your Colossus Smash window, when you charged it up with X amount of medals, it would do this percent more damage, and then maybe add, like let's say you charge it up to the 2 medals, and it would do a bleed, like it would add percentage damage and then add a bleed, and then if you charge it up towards 3, which would be a very long charge time, it could turn from a Helm Splitter into just a giant cleave, which would add a bleed, like a big dot on everything, on top of just doing a big base amount of damage. Um, it is very, very, very different from how the current arms would play. It would play certainly more, almost like a setup spec, where you would have with every 30 to 45 seconds setup windows. Maybe play more like, I wouldn't say specifically like Frost DK, but it would play like you would just be in these very short cooldown big windows, where in between those windows you would play more like resource generation and setup. I don't know if that's a big cook, and I feel like, especially with, I don't think melee players like essentially a cast bar on their shit, right? That's why people
I
like
think
demolish.
you can get around it by doing stuff like Templar strikes from Ret, where it's like you have a multi-part move on the same button. Honestly, if Demolish was that instead of the way it is now, I think people would fucking love it.
If it was more of like a charge up big hit,
If it was
it's like
literally like
a
a
frontal.
multi, like you know how Templar strikes works for Ret? It's like a
Yeah, it's a
two-part
two.
attack. So
Yeah,
you
2 part
press it once
combo.
and then you press it again. If Demolish worked like that, so you could time each of the 3 strikes, people would fucking love it. Like I guarantee it. The issue with Demolish is like the rooting and the mobility stuff,
I was
along
gonna
with the
say,
desync. But
I think the bigger issues are it doesn't desync with, or it desyncs
the
with everything.
desyncing is cringe.
Uh,
But like that's a hard
it's
issue to
the
fix.
it's the not being able to move your fucking character while you're doing it. Like comparing, like for example, like people said like, oh, I don't like Bladestorm because it like removes control of my character. Well, it's like, okay, you can still move your character freely, and with Slayer you can still interrupt and stun while you're doing it, and it doesn't last very long. But there's no movement impairing effect at all. If they made Demolish like that, where you literally just move freely no matter what, I think that would solve a lot of the problems.
Like
Yeah, but you
a
get 5% DR.
Yeah,
Just
5% TR, by the way.
But it's like imagine
Jesus
if you're
Christ.
doing fucking Sire Denathrius, and if you don't use your Demolish or your Fear Laugh active during a massacre window, then you just will lose a use during a fight or some shit.
Well, it's like Fist of Fury on fucking Windwalker. Like they can move freely while doing it. Why isn't Demolish just like that? I don't understand. Like why?
It's
I
skill
mean,
testing.
considering all our
You have to
class,
plan when mechanics are gonna come out, and then use your demolish accordingly.
like
Fuck you if you miss a use though.
considering our entire classes, we use big two-handed sword. You'd assume we could use it and not have to fucking plant.
I mean, if they want to do the I don't know, man. They need to get the root shit out of their fucking head. They need to stop doing that.
Because
I don't know why.
It's not fun gameplay.
It's
no
not
one likes this.
It's not a meaningful choice. It's just annoying. But
I've seen like a couple suggestions for how to fix the desync issues, but I think you'd have to like essentially redesign Colossus as a whole to accomplish it. Like people have been saying, like, oh yeah, just make the capstone like, oh yeah, your demolish is now affected by AM, and like
that. I pretty much, yeah, just like do that. They need to just remove the soul like CDR from the hero talents, because creating anti synergy with your other kit, like part of the kit.
they could like I'm pretty sure they just like, if you want to do that, you just double the amount of stacks it takes to like reach the cap, like make it 20 stacks like of your Mortal Strike shit, and just like increase the effect of it too. So it's like, okay, each stack gives 5% damage and 5% crit.
well,
So it's a bigger meteor button. It has consistency. It doesn't desync from your cooldowns.
yeah. Like also it's Gajeel's. If they put AM in the class tree, then it just affects everything. Then once again, you have the choice of demolishes more often, or then if you had the other option of just empowering your cooldowns, bigger demolishes, and then you wouldn't have to worry about like one of the things that's going to be affecting Colossus a lot is the amount of haste and crit we have, because you're just going to send. It might even be the desync might even be worse because we're going to be spending the same amount of rage, but our crit rate's going to be higher, so we're going to desync it in a different way, just with how the spec functions currently. But having AM just affect everything just means you can be like bigger burst, more windows. Like it just
Yeah,
it just makes more sense to have it that way.
me and Gajeel have been like, he's been telling me about this shit for so fucking long, and he's converted me to his thought process. Like, AM not affecting everything just causes so many problems. It's just like annoying to play around. I don't know. You can nerf it too. Like if it's going to affect everything, make it like a 1 minute average CD instead of 45 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be totally fine too. Just like if they want to nerf the refund or the return on being spent, sure. But having it, not ruin your your synergy, then sure.
Yeah. Well, I believe it is bedtime for
Yeah,
for
I gotta
Aladdin.
go.
It is Garmy bedtime, but I also think we've covered most of the things, as well as just kind of like I said, I did the whole, well, we're going to do a retrospective, but there honestly wasn't much to talk about. So we just kind of yapped about Warrior shit, which that's kind of what I wanted to do anyway. So,
I mean, the retrospective is like, change us more, please.
yeah, it's like literally almost nothing to talk about outside of a very few slight things like the 0.5 patch in season 1. But Jeff, thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I always
Yeah,
have
Thanks for
fun.
having me as well.
I always have fun doing the. It was
Always.
good actually. Instead of just memeing every now and then in Discord, actually being able to talk to you, Mr. Garms. So
No, I appreciate the invite.
yeah. So
Yeah, TY.
yep. Have a good sleep. Thanks for joining me. Also, if people are interested, I will be posting. I'll be uploading this to YouTube as well, and then I will have all of their social media stuff down below listed, so you can find them individually if you would like. So,
Good night.
and then bye bye.
GN. GG's.
Yeah.
I will just showing this anger management thing.
Yeah, just for reference, I found it last minute. That's from what
That's from WAD, you said?
Yeah, this is the WAD version.
That's actually interesting. That 30 rage change is the exact change they made and then reverted after they changed it on top of the nerf to Umbrella Ferocity.
Yeah, yeah. Just like kind of how it affects everything. Like they could remove the non-DPS stuff. They wanted to take out like CC and defensive benefit, sure, but just mainly like it's just like the offensive capability there. Like it affects Avatar, Bloodbath, Recklessness, all your damage. So
Yeah, I'd be down to go to a 1 minute class. It would slow it down slightly, but I think it would also help line up cooldowns with how the rest of the classes function in the game. Instead of being, it feels like we're just kind of on our own when we're using stuff and when we're planning cooldown usage a lot of the time, outside of really specific stuff like maybe like Dathia platform.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, anyway, thanks for joining me again. I always like talking
Yeah,
to you
of
guys. So
course. GG's. Good
yeah,
stream.
yeah. Have a good night, man.
GN.
Yeah.